Hello, hello, my lovely human, and welcome back to Women When Fueled. Today, we're joined by a truly radiant and inspiring guest, the extraordinary Kianna Moore. Kianna is a beloved teacher at Anamkara Healing Center, a self-love coach, a powerful energetic healer, and an integrative healing nurse with a passion for holistic health and wellness. Her journey bridges the realms of science and spirituality, offering a profound reminder that science is magic we know, and magic is science we don't yet understand. From her work as a Reiki Master and meditation guide to her pursuit of a bachelor's in science and nursing, Kianna has dedicated herself to helping others find balance, harmony, and healing, mind, body, and soul. Her unique perspective will leave you feeling enlightened, grounded, and ready to embrace the wholeness within yourself. Before we dive into today's conversation, as always, a quick note. Women When Fueled is for entertainment and connection purposes only and is not meant to replace professional advice or your lived experience. Episodes may include light conversational cursing, so please use this information to guide your listening experience. Also, please note that about a half hour in, my microphone has interference for a small period. Fortunately, I talk very little during this time, but please know that we do know about the glitch. It does resolve itself, but we ultimately decided that this conversation was simply too great to re-record. In today's episode, Kianna shares her wisdom on the importance of balance when honoring your mind, body, and spirit, how seeking diverse mentors can deepen your journey, the liberating truth that this too shall pass, even our lives, the concept of sacred boundaries and how to honor them, an introduction to spiritual distress and its impact on healing, and the difference between self-love and toxic positivity. This conversation is a beautiful exploration of what it means to live authentically and holistically, honoring every facet of your being. Get ready for a conversation filled with light, insight, and deep connection. Let's dive in. Welcome to Women When Fueled. The proposed topic that I kind of had in mind was kind of how you've managed to find your center in both spaces of source and science. Because you have these two dramatically different ends of the spectrum that you're working with, and you do both so well.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, and I would just love to kind of kick it off there, just how to create a magic that's unique to you despite holding space for two very different things.
I don't know. I honestly don't believe they're that different, I guess is probably why it seems like I'm doing so well in both, is because I don't separate them. Me and my sisters always say that like science is just magic we know and magic is just science we don't. And
I love that. I had whole body like magic chill down my body.
And I feel like that's just like perceived in art very well, right? We watch like shows like Arcane, and there's scientists that are using magical orbs to try to like create magic in the world that's like consumerism and whatever, you know?
Yeah.
And so it honestly is perceived pretty consistently if you're paying attention, right? It's kind of like giving birth as a mother, right? It's like a magical experience, yet there's so much science behind it.
Yeah.
So I don't necessarily approach it as two separate things. I think that the reason my spiritual practice has gotten strengthened, there's many reasons, but is actually like while in school, it was like every time I'd learn something, it would just like cement my beliefs.
Sure.
Right? Like every time I'd learn something about the cells and like reproduction or like just what the human body is capable of, I was like, oh, that thing is definitely used to house the spirit. Like it's in there and it's safe because like we can like hack so many parts of ourselves and morph ourselves, and the spirit is just like residing in us and like powering those things, like the ability to heal, right?
Totally.
And then all the science behind how like meditation and sitting intentionally can like ramp up that healing process, right? Like, I don't know. It's not separate by any means if you're approaching it holistically, right? Like we are one being. And then being in the world, yes, like, do not get me wrong, I was like deemed the hippie nurse, like in nursing school. Like, they perceived it as
society perceives them as separate.
Yeah,
and
like,
it's easier for their brains to conceptualize it if they're different.
Yeah, exactly. Like, this is in this box and this is in that box, and I'm allowed to be in this box without having to think about that box.
Ooh, that's applicable to so many facets of life, and I want to get back to that later. Boxes. I'm just gonna write boxes.
But yeah. I honestly think that it's just the approach of anything, right? Perspective is huge. But more than that, when what is it called? Like, limited self-beliefs, right?
Yeah.
I think that that's what happens. And then yet we have scientists who have these brilliant minds, but because there's so much that's unseen, that they start to believe that this is real, that isn't. And we forget about feeling there. And then you have the people maybe in like the spiritual community who are so about feeling and kind of being up in like the ethers, they sort of forget about the human experience. And then you have a lot of spiritual practitioners who have a hard time when they're feeling a little bit depressed or have like seasonal depression, or like a family member, something happens and they have grief and they're struck with these very like human things. And all of a sudden they're like completely derailed because they've just kind of negated that human aspect to like the spiritual. And so we do it in so many ways, and it's not wrong, right? Like, we're human, so we're just doing our best. To be honest, we're doing our best, trying really hard. But I think because like we're already awake and aware, right, in so many ways, we do a disadvantage, or we do a disservice to ourselves when we don't like approach each thing with as much intention. So I approach my love for science and the human body just as intentionally as I would like my enlightenment and my spirituality. And then all the other walks in life, right? Like, moving the body is like a whole nother gambit of things, like learning to just be able to get up in the morning and fight against like hormones and my back hurting or whatever. Like, that's the human being, like, body not doing great. And then you remember the magic inside that's like, okay, but I have the power. And then that's also science. Like, my brain can overpower what my body is trying to tell me. And then also my brain can listen to what my body is trying to tell me, right? Because it could be as simple as like, oh, my tummy kind of hurts. And most people will just kind of be like, whatever. But you're like, you know what? It's probably because of all the sugar I ate. Or just like, you know, trying to get a little bit more intentional with like what's being said around you. Again, people in the spiritual world do it a lot with like, well, I saw 222, right? So synchronicities, like, oh, obviously, the world is speaking to me, source is talking to me. And it's like, okay, yeah, but like your body's also talking to you.
Sure.
So it's kind of like incorporating magic within the science so you can amplify it. And then also science within the magic so you can amplify it. Like, it all works together. So it's just kind of, again, like the perception, how aware you are, and then the intention behind what you care about. I think for me, because I realized I cared about very specifically like biology, that's like my field of science, right? Was because of my love for like soul and spirit, because that's where I lived. And then on top of that, just bringing it back to like motherhood, like the idea of just like creating life was just like beyond me, like mind blown. Like like I remember the day I was like, it wasn't even like about being a nurse. I was like, I'm going to take like every biology class I ever can. I was in a science class in high school, and we watched this video. It was one of those days where the teacher just like puts on a video.
Totally.
Love those days, right? It's like Bill Nye the Science Guy.
They're doing their best.
They're doing their best. They are just humans. But I remember it was this video about like this like superhuman, and it was about different like crazy stories of humans doing like unbelievable things. And it was about this mother who like lifted a car off their child, right?
Oh my gosh, yeah.
And then there was another story about this man who was on a hike, and this boulder like came down and like landed on him, and he like tore every muscle in his body, but was able to somehow get this like ton boulder off of him. I literally was just like,
just
roll it back.
Superhuman
Run
moment.
it back. I was like, that makes no sense. You're telling me this person just like somehow
decided to take the
you
boulder
can't
off
tell
me.
me that's not something more than just the body.
Right.
Like, yes.
There's source.
There's something
beyond the physical capacity of your meat suit.
Oh, I literally got chills again, but I was like, what, like 16 years old, like watching this. I mean, there's not like a recording of it happening, but we're having the story told to us, and there's a record of it. It like actually happened, right? Yeah. And they're spending all this money and time trying to figure out like, well, how did this person do it? And it's like they can't quote unquote figure it out. They can't explain it. So right there, right in a science class, once again,
Yeah.
They're just proving to me that there's something beyond what we
Right.
can see, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know, it just makes me excited. So then it's like,
I love it.
So yeah, I mean, literally since that moment, I don't think I ever really divided the two, if that makes any sense. I honestly feel like every chance I get, I connect the two because they're already connected, but I kind of take a intentional look at where it's connected and how for me that I can see. But there's so much that's unexplainable. So it's like,
Totally.
I don't even rack my brain about it too much because I'm not trying to go crazy.
There's no need to contemplate it too much because we just can accept that it can't be explained.
Exactly.
Which not everyone can accept that,
No.
but we can.
A lot of scientists really don't like that idea. And I think that's where that box comes back in, where they're like, if I can't spend time to try to explain it, make it real, then it's just not. Which is crazy to me because I can't explain to you, even in nursing, like something that's, you know, got this policies and defined lines, everything is still in theory, right? Like the idea of blood pressure, we only really know in theory. Like the idea of like liver and how it can like you cut out a piece and then it's growing back. We only understand that in theory. Like, so they're even saying, yes, we know this for sure, but it's also
You're like,
in there. Like, I'm like, okay.
Like 99.99% of the time, it's true. However, not always.
Not always. I remember very specifically, like one of my first years in nursing prereqs, that we had this book, and I'm in classes, literally day one, and they're like, okay, turn to chapter 11. By the way, we're going to disregard everything we know. I think it was about kidneys. It was like all of this stuff on kidneys we're not going to look at because we had just proven that all of this is wrong. Literally, it had been in textbooks for who knows how long.
This is recent time,
yeah,
too.
so this was probably like 2016, right?
Yeah.
And they're like, so the books are changing, but we just don't have that book yet. We have this one. Everything else is fine. Everything else is real, is what they're saying. But that thing.
But how can you tell me that everything else is real when this textbook that has been printed and distributed?
Oh, I had so many questions. I was like, okay, wait, we're not going to just glaze over that. Like, because they were just like, oh, cross it out. Don't worry about it. So we're just also, not going to learn anything about the kidneys in this class, which is just crazy to me. But I think my favorite part was I like raised my hand and asked, like, okay, like what about it?
WTF.
Was like, what did you find out? Like, what is this new science? Like, I was like, again, once very excited. And they were just like, oh, like the shape of the cell that we thought that like created the structure of it is like not what we thought. It's actually, there's a little bit more to it, blah, blah. You know, it's hard to explain too. You can spend years learning about just cells in general,
right?
You know, or the brain or whatever. We go through a unit in 1 week and it's so fast. So it's like, there's a lot of information in my brain, but it's like scratching the surface of each thing.
Wait a minute.
Yeah, right. It's not that as deep because I mean, I'm not by any means a genius, so I'm not going to remember everything.
Sure.
But I do remember like the feeling, right? And just being like, okay, so everything I ever learn is in there. Like that was cemented for me. And I was like, so there's so much magic and things can change. Yeah. That's all that I was taught. They're thinking they're teaching us like this science, right? And like things change and hypothesis and and we know this for sure. And this is how blood works and this is how the skin works. And
but you practice medicine.
Yeah, it's just, and I just,
But that part's concrete. The textbook is concrete, but we practice medicine.
And the amount of money I've spent on textbooks, like, that's it. That's what's insane. But most of the things that I truly believe are real and full are the things that are not necessarily in a textbook and things that I'm not seeing. It's usually feeling. So for me, the forward part of who I am is definitely more spiritual, and then backed up by science, which for most people, it's like, you know, what I see is what I believe, and science is real, and then everything else is woohoo. That's so strange. Yeah. And I'm like the complete opposite. I'm like, breath is real.
Right.
Like, my soul is living inside me. I know nothing about the body, but I know where my soul lives. Like, you know, like it's so concrete for me. And so I confuse people, I think, a lot of the time.
Well, that's exactly why I wanted you on, was because for so many, like you and I understand that there can be space for both in your mind, body, and spirit as far as source and science. However, for so many people, like those who want to put source in a box and science in a box, they have to stay separate for the world to make sense. Like they are not to that level yet where they can hold both.
Yeah.
And I have had like Hannah and Stefan, and they are so esoteric, but they don't have that other background in science and that interest in the other. And I know that so many women who are just beginning to explore something like meditation and breath, just beginning to explore something like Reiki or self-development in general, they need someone who can speak to both.
Yeah.
And can reconfigure the boxes and can kind of break down the walls so that we
or
can
just are very aware that there are no boxes.
There are no boxes.
There's literally no
there
boxes.
Are no boxes. Yeah.
But we create things out of safety because like security and to feel firm in who we are is really important. But I think we, again, limited belief, right? We limit ourselves to think like this is who I am or this is what I know. I truly believe I know nothing. Like that's how I think I get away with it. It's like I know nothing. And I can only learn a limited amount of things with the human brain I have, so I don't give so much weight to what I do or don't like know. I used to struggle with that though. That's a practice that I've like learned because I used to be so struck by like I need to master this to have any weight in it or to feel valuable within this thing. And if I don't master
legitimacy.
if I don't master it, then I'm just like some fraud. But then I've let that go because I realized that it's just me creating boxes for myself. And I'm like, and I had a really hard discussion a few years ago about the idea of putting yourself in a box. And there's some things you can't control. Like I am a Black woman in America and on the street, like that's what I look like to people, right? And that box is created. But like for me, I know there's so much more than that. So like, yes, there are boxes around. They're being tossed around all the time. And people believe in them so firmly that they feel real. But I think it becomes, you know, like a personal choice of like where are mine lines. It is more about boundaries. Like I have to have I just had a whole conversation about sacred boundaries. And those are like the boundaries you have with yourself, right? And I think that's very different than a box though, where I know my limits. If I push myself too hard here, if I don't have my spiritual practice, especially while trying to learn something new, then I start to lose part of myself. So like boundaries are very different. So I think we kind of confuse the two, and we also allow other people to apply boxes to our life, which is like the, you know, the programming or social construct, whatever you want, the matrix, whatever you want to call it.
And also the trap that so many of us get into. And of course I had like a whole burnout fueled mental breakdown that was this icky cycle of perfectionism and people pleasing.
Yeah.
And it's so relevant to all women when you do find yourself at this point of realizing I have let other people put me in their box. And when I've tried to kind of like break the walls and to say that there is no box, or when I have tried to shift, they haven't liked it, and I've gotten back in my box willingly.
You know what, that I love that and hate it all at the same time. I love it because it gives like such a beautiful representation to something I say a lot to my clients, which is we are more likely to break our own boundary first, because that's what you're describing. Like we're using that word boxes, but it's like you try to set this boundary of like, this is what I believe, this is what I see, this is how I feel, please respect it. And then we're usually very guilty of being the first one to disrespect it by placing ourselves back into that box or crossing our boundary before someone else even can, just to try to please
sacrificing your boundary before someone else's boundary or request or anything. So example, this like really real world example, I think, is your time and your energy and being willing to say no. If it's not a hell yes for you. If someone's like, oh, or example for me, a bigger thing, my mom and I were very professionally close for a long time, and people kind of thought that we were very personally close too, and because we were so professionally close. And the fact of the matter was that she and I didn't have really a touchy-feely mother-daughter side to what we were doing. So kind of anything that she did ask of me on what felt like a personal side, I would always give up what I had already planned to do. So like if I'm pursuing writing a book, or if I'm pursuing making my course or doing other things like that, if she were to ask me, I would break my boundary. I had the time blocked. I had the kids covered. I did all these things so that I could pursue what I wanted. And then she would ask, and even if it was something really small, I would toss whatever I was doing. And I think that that's kind of a real world example for anyone that's listening of just like, where are you sacrificing your own sacred boundaries for the sake of someone else or making them happy?
Yeah, I really don't remember where I heard this, but I remember it stuck with me instantly. And of course, every time I quote it or say it's probably a little bit different.
Sure.
Playing the game of telephone. But the message is still always the same, is that boundaries are the line where I can love and respect myself as much as I love and respect you.
Ooh.
And I just thought that was so beautiful because it's really hard to explain boundaries, right? And then as humans, we do that thing where we start to morph and shift language and ideas, right? Feminism, like that idea has changed and morphed.
So many times.
So many ways. Sometimes not for the best, right? Yeah. So trying to be very clear with like what a boundary actually is. It's not a way for me to like disrespect you or a way for me to be like, I'm more important or, you know, a way for me to be like, I know what's right. Like those kinds of ideas can accidentally slip into boundary setting, but a boundary is truly set so that I can exist in the space without giving up parts of myself. And that does not take away from you. And if somebody feels or believes that, then that is somewhere where they need to take a look at themselves, as long as you're doing it respectfully. If I'm disrespecting you by quote unquote setting a boundary, then I'm not technically setting a boundary.
If you're setting your boundary with kindness and articulate boundaries, like if you're willing to stay kind in the way that you're expressing it and to not call names or to kind of fall back into smaller behavior.
Right. And then just doubling down, tripling down if somebody, like, you know, having, for example, a narcissist for a mother, right, is a very common thing, I feel like. And then it's like we become adults, and I do not have a narcissist for a mother. This is just something I've seen.
I was like, I don't think I've
No, my mother is literally amazing. No, not at all. I just mean, I think as like a self-love coach, I come across people pleasing pretty often, and it's usually a byproduct of having a narcissistic parent. So that's just where that story comes from. But back to the example is like when my mom is guilt tripping me and like shitting on me, again, I have to then reaffirm my boundary. And it becomes a practice because it's so hard, especially when we've been programmed and we're these people's children. We want to feel like we're respecting them, and we get instant shame by trying to set a boundary and then reaffirming it. And so we have to remember like, okay, I'm not being disrespectful, but you have to really try to remember that kindness. And then also like, if you're setting a boundary with someone, it means you care a lot, because a really clean-cut boundary is to just be like, I'm done. And that is okay. It's respectable because you're not, you know, like attached to anything or anyone. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to be in someone's life. So if I'm like, I love you enough, even with my downfalls and your downfalls not necessarily mixing well, but I care enough to want to set this boundary so that we can have a respectable, like loving relationship where I'm getting my needs met and you're getting your needs met. Like that's such a beautiful thing. But we live in a society that kind of shits on boundaries. Yeah. So we start to look at it like, ugh, like they're just being so like ridiculous, right? Like, you know, narcissistic mom coming in and feeding your kid sugar at 1 year old when you've said 6 times that we are not doing that. And why are you making such a big deal out of it? Well, because I've set a very strict boundary. I reaffirmed it. I told you with my words kindly, and you just completely disregarded it. So that's why like boundary setting is so hard for people, is because it's a muscle that must be strengthened through time and practice. And that sounds exhausting. Like people don't want to do that. So we just kind of allow ourselves to be like stepped all over. But that's like also exhausting. Like you commented on the people pleasing thing. And I think just as like a self-love coach, I run into it so often because a very big part of why people have a lack of self-love is because they're kind of divvying it out so much to everyone else. So there's not enough left for them. And that in a lot of ways is people pleasing. And like literally right before I left nursing school, by left, I mean graduated, got out of there because it was prison. No, I'm just kidding. But one of the last things I had like heard that really like fascinated me is that they were starting to apply new carcinogenics on the list of like, you know, like #1 things for cancer, and then also new psychological diagnosis. And one of them that was like either up for debate or was like solidified, I'm not sure, I'd have to take a look just like anyone else, but
I don't know why she's talking to me, Siri,
excuse me, is people pleasing, that it can be a diagnosed mental disorder. Just like,
I could see that.
Just like narcissism, right? Like, is it something you're born with? Is it learned? How do we combat it? And psychologists were like, man, you know what's something that I'm running into pretty consistently, and I think is something from like nurture and nature. Who knows? Let's find out. People pleasing, like putting so many other people first, causes such mental, spiritual, and physical, like, you know, pain, that these people are struggling to live functional lives. And that's kind of when we determine something like, you know, addiction. Like once it starts to mess with your life and how you function in life, then we can deem it as a problem. Right. You know, your schizophrenia is messing up your life. It's now a problem. Sure. So we're going to, but it doesn't always.
It's easier to see when it's something as big as schizophrenia, when it's something is so clear. Whereas as women in particular, I feel like we're told to be a good girl, you are good for others.
Yes.
And so when you start to shift that narrative for yourself and people don't like it, I don't know. For me, people pleasing was certainly learned. I think it's a part, wanting to make people happy and wanting to be a positive presence in people's life is the nature. And wanting to be of service is nature. However, the protection mechanism I cultivated and nurtured in myself, because it got good results and people liked it
To a point.
was the people pleasing.
Yeah.
I'm like, it's a fuzzier line between I'm just a person for others and I'm just like, I love to serve, versus no, this is detrimental to my pursuits. This is detrimental to my physical, mental, emotional well-being.
And how I show up for myself. And if I can't show up for myself, then all of that pleasing I'm doing for others is actually for naught. And that's a very scary and like shameful place to be for people pleasers who are trying to get out of that cycle. Oof. It's like, well, if I stop, then, well, one, who the hell am I? Yeah. And two, won't everyone else like suffer? And it's like, no, but also one of my favorite things was like those TikToks when people are like, you're a person too, are you pleased? Like, you know, like the very like tough love aspect to like talking to people pleasers, which I try to be very gentle with because, again, like they don't want to seem like they're upsetting someone. So even in the aspect of like client to practitioner, I'm very gentle depending on where they are within it, right? Sure. Someone like you, knowing all the work you've done, if I saw it very clearly, I'd been like, yo, bro, like, can you stop? Like, I'm fine. You don't got to worry about me. Like, please take care of yourself. But like for most people, you have to remember that, like what you said, the root of where it's coming from is such a beautiful thing. It's just where it has gone, has become corrupt. Like most things in aging, when our purity and our, you know, just like newness to the world dissipates, because we've been here, been through a few things, we start to get a little bit more calloused, and it's harder to start seeing those lines. You said like that blurring becomes, I mean, life is all gray area, but the blurring of who I am and what I need can be very crystal clear, because that's sometimes the only thing we do know and the only thing we do have control in. So that's like the one, if you're going to ask for clarity in life, you're going to manifest and ask source for something, clarity. They're not going to clear up the world for you. They're not going to make war stop and all of the crazy things that we cannot understand, but what we can clear up is like the determining of who I am in this moment, and also the clarity that I'm allowed and will change, right? And that's like inevitable. And it's just all non-attachment at the end of the day. I mean, I struggle with non-attachment because I love my family so dearly that it's like, oh no, if I unattach myself and not focus on pleasing my parents and my sister, then again, who am I? And if I don't know who I am I not going to float off into the ethers and not have purpose? And no, that's exactly what it feels like. And then people describe it as like spiritual death. And like every time you practice non-attachment, it's like a little bit more grief, but a lot more freedom. A little bit more grief, but then a lot more freedom. Like it just keeps happening. But it's, again, practice. Like anything, it's a muscle. And I think that's really a big part of how, again, like bringing it back to where like science and magic lives, because the reason it's a muscle and you have to practice these things is because we're looking for enlightenment and freedom in our mind, soul, and spirit. But the practice is in our body. It's somatic. It's nervous system. It's...
so good. I'm like crawling out of my skin. I'm like, it's all so good.
I did want to bring it back to like when you were saying like, oh, I was, you know, this is the question I had for you, because I talked to like Hannah, and I just... I have a lot of mentors in my life. So Hannah's a mentor of mine. And then obviously like in nursing school and just throughout, I've had lots of like mentors who have been on the floor working for however long. And one of my favorites was the gal I got to be with, Donna, who is my nurse I precepted for when I was doing my hospice precepting right before I graduated. So like lots of really brilliant, beautiful mentors on different walks of life. Yeah. But one of my absolute, like my number one mentor in life, who has been there literally since day one, that I look up to and will probably literally for the rest of my life, not even probably will, is my sister Aubrey. And what's so beautiful about having the strength to say like I don't divide the two, like spirit and science, is not only because of my own experiences, but from like watching her. She was really young when she determined like, the human brain is very confusing. I don't know anything. And so she decided that she wanted to go into psychology. And believe me, people think nursing school is hard. I took one psychology class and I was like, literally never again. Talking about everything being in theory. I'm like, everything's a concept. I don't even know where to begin.
The mind is a concept.
I want you to tell me like A, B, C, and D. And then that's just, we're good. You know, blood pressure is high. We take pills. Like, but obviously I've learned more. But this is like back in the day when Aubrey was just starting college. So I was still very young. But I just remember like watching her try to determine a bit of like how the mind works and how it incorporates connection and like expressing yourself. And she's always really big on, it's not what you're saying, it's how you deliver it, because what you're saying can be so contradictory to what people believe, but it's really how you deliver it and how you are kind to people. And just like the emotion in the mind, right? Like, and how we emote what's happening in our mind is all so powerful. And it's like spell work, it's witchcraft in so many ways. And psychology is like, again, and the brain is like a whole nother just storm of confusion that I don't necessarily understand. But like, as a sister and as like a friend to this person who was on a journey of like, not necessarily figuring it out, because we learned very quickly that we're not going to figure it out. We're never going to get there. No.
There is no there.
But to try to have an understanding very purely of ourselves. That's why she went. She was like, I have stuff going on in my mind. And instead of going and finding a therapist, she was like, I'm going to
study it.
I'm going to go figure out everything that everyone knows about this and then apply it to my life. And I just thought that was so beautiful and strong. And her conviction of just being like, again, we can't master everything. And that's been a learned thing for me. But back then, just like, I'm going to go and master this idea so that I can have control of who I am, because that's the one thing I do have control in. And that was like such a big like moment for me, where I was like, shit, like, what am I going to do?
Yeah.
Like, how am I going to learn who I am?
Right.
And I just approach each thing with that same energy of, we will never know, but what we can do is always ask the question. I think that's the beauty of psychology and like what her schooling was, and how we like complement each other so well. Is that she's very big on asking the questions without attaching to the outcome of the answers, or even if there will be an answer. And I'm very big on knowing there are questions and how does it feel? Like, where is it in your body? Where is it in your soul? Like, what does it do for you? And those driving forces remind us that like, we just are living our lives, and magic is just happening. Psychology is real. The brain will do things. We don't have full control over what will happen even in our bodies, but we have control in how we're going to respond and react and interact with others while feeling these things. Yeah, I couldn't go and master psychology by any means, but I sure as hell go and search for and surround myself with the masters in certain things. And I just felt really blessed that I got to be like born into a family that has separate masters in different things, so that we can just like amplify each other. So when I find myself accidentally boxing myself up or whatever, I'm just very lucky to have that support system and that like energies coming from my family, where I can get clarity of not, again, attaching myself to them and everything, but clarity of like who I am, just like reminded of what I bring to the table, regardless of what I look like, what my career path is. You know, I went to nursing school, I'm not even nursing, right? So it's like, no matter what I'm doing in life, the same things are happening. I am me. Magic is real. Science is still sciencing. Psychology is still, you know, happening. Like, all of it is real. And it's not even about like the destination. It's just how you're approaching. Like I was talking earlier about like awareness, like approaching life with intention. And I think that one of the most beautiful things you can do is like find those mentors that are in different walks of life. If you are really big in science, maybe your mentor isn't this scientist that's in the same field as you. It's that meditation leader that works downtown, right? Or if you're really big into the, you know, woohoo and magic and everything, maybe you do go take like a doula class, or get your nursing and get a midwife, so that you can incorporate your spirit into your work. Like for me, that's why I landed in hospice, right? It's like the one place I felt like in nursing where that was understood in so many ways, that spirit is important. In other aspects of it, it wasn't like that. So I think that mixing it up is like a really powerful way. And I learned that really early on, because I had a very drastically different sister than who I was. And being able to use the knowledge of others and the experiences of others to remind myself of who I am was such a powerful tool. Because like we're not gonna be able to walk every walk of life. We're not gonna be able to learn everything or know for a fact where science
Your
ends.
assignment on Earth is only so long.
Yeah, and also like like don't get me started on reincarnation, but like I don't remember everything I've done before or whatever, but my spirit does. That's how I know it's real. Like it's like you can't
feel it in my soul.
You can't convince me otherwise. I would always say that, like especially in nursing school, when people would be like, "How do you believe in the power of meditation?" I'm like, well, I can sit here and explain it to you, but it's not a debate, because I'm gonna let you know right now, you're not going to be able to make me believe otherwise. Like and people aren't strong in their conviction in so many ways, and so you can really morph and manipulate like situations and people and their minds and stuff. Again, bringing it back to psychology, especially if you're really good, you could do without even them knowing, right? But when you really incorporate like your spirit in the science of just like life and how things work, then all of a sudden you're a little less malleable to the matrix, right? Hannah used to always say too, like, like what did she say? Structure in the matrix, but like freedom in the spirit, right? Like we live amongst, we have to pay our taxes. We gotta eat.
There are earthly things we must
gotta do the stuff, but like that does not mean
we have to play the game a little bit.
I'm not confined to the prison of it, because I have conviction in knowing that my spirit resides just as strongly as my body that you're seeing is here. And then there's beautiful people like you who also somehow see the spirit. And then like, again, it just reinforces like you see me, and it's not just like my being and my human body. So it's like being perceived too on like a deep level. That's why connection is so beautiful and important. And again, like for me, that just confirms the things I already know. And for other people, they're just like, oh no, it's just a vibe, or it was the alcohol, the drugs, whatever.
Sure. They attribute it to something outside of themselves as opposed to accepting that it could be something within them.
Yeah, absolutely. Or even when people try to like give the power away, like, oh, you have such a beautiful soul, Kianna. Like, oh, your energy's so great. I love being around you. It was like, no, it's because you're open to the process of connecting with someone who like gives a damn. Like, it's not me that did anything special. You're just open to the process of loving me, which is a beautiful thing. And seeing my, it's you. Yes, we're all very separate, but we're also so connected. And so I don't know where I end and others begin in the spiritual world, but I know that our physical beings are those containers so that I can be an individual. So
that's so big. I love that so much. Ooh, there are so many directions. This is exactly why I wanted you here. I'm so excited. So I remember from different trainings that we've done together, you referred to how as a young being here in your younger years, you did feel that connection to source, and you did feel something bigger than what was expected of a little person.
Yeah.
And feeling different. And I would love to dive into your journey from little Kianna that feels all these things and senses all of these things and knows that energy's here, but my school's telling me something different.
Also, again, like, lack of being able to know everything too is so scary, right? Like, that's why I think we search for knowledge, and someone like me searches for knowledge so deeply, is because we are hoping to explain things. But then I think through that process is how I figured out, like, the idea of not attaching even to that, right? But yeah, I love that question. I feel like I do share pretty often, like in circle or whatever I'm doing in life, or even when like back in school when another nursing student would ask me like, a question, and it even kind of pinged towards like more of a spiritual thing. I was like, we're definitely diving into this, because it, sharing your story is a huge gateway to other people just taking a look into their own lives. And I also need that too. Like, I love hearing other people's stories and getting perspective, having that mirror up, right? That reflection, so I can learn a thing or two about myself, because again, that's what we're here for. We talk about a lot in just like as like parents, little people with big feelings, and we kind of contribute, like the idea of just like nervous system to these kids, and the idea of like, oh, their friend hurt their feelings, so they're having this outburst, and the world is ending over something that's so small. And it was a little bit more than that. In my mind, it's a little bit more than that for other kids, but I can't speak for every human being or every child. So I do contribute to myself. But it was so much more than just like, oh, little body, big feelings. It was little body existential crisis. Like, I'm 7 years old.
I'm asking. I remember it was like, no. You were like this huge soul in this like beginning on this earth plane. You're like, what the hell is this?
I'm like, oh gosh, something's happening. And what's so crazy is I just yesterday was having a conversation with my trainer. Because I've been hitting the gym, getting strong. Because again, my human body needed just as much love and attention as my spirit, and I kind of realized like I was hitting one part of it really hard and not the other. But I was just talking to him about how my favorite number is 5, and I love getting this question when people are like, "Why is your number like favorite number 5?" They probably will think like, "Oh, it's because you have 5 family members in your family."
Like, it's such a balanced number.
Yeah, or like it's something super random. Like, oh no, it's because when I was 5 years old, I remember standing in my backyard. I remember our backyard so beautifully. It was a corner house. And the yard came, and it was like at the corner itself. And my dad had this little playhouse that he had built for us, and you know, had like this upstairs. It was super cute. We would play in it, and I remember standing there, and I was facing our like actual home. And it's so weird because memory is strange. Who knows if your brain embellishes things? Who knows like what the perspective really was? But I have this like semi memory of being like the being, and also the semi memory of being the spirit. And I remember standing there. 5 years old, had my little teddy bear. His name was Toodles. He wore like pink pajamas, so cute. And entering my body. Like I was just like this being playing, being loved on, sister, everything, having a good old time. And then all of a sudden I'm just like, holy shit, I'm alive. I was like, wait, hold on. And it was all these big feelings, and parents or somebody would just be like, oh, they're just having an emotional outburst. Like maybe I'm hungry, or maybe I'm sleepy, because I'm 5 years old. Right. Who knows what's going on with them? But I didn't have the knowledge, or, language is the same as words, but the ability to explain what I had experienced. And it took me decades, like I would say a decade, probably around 15, 16, so about 10 years later, where I was like, holy shit, that's what happened. Right. Was, who knows if maybe, and I say like I entered my body, but maybe I was, the spirit was already inside and just woke up. Maybe it was more of a download. Who knows how the process of these things work, if that's even a thing. Yeah. But I just remember the moment. And it's really crazy because it was literally from that moment on, it was like from 5 to 7 were really rough years for me, which is so strange to say because you're so little, right? Yeah. But I mean, I was diagnosed with clinical depression at 7 years old. My mom was taking me to the hospital. I remember, again, love my mother, and she was just doing her absolute best. But I remember her commenting one time, like, you're 7 and have everything you need. Like, what could be the problem? Wrong? Like, what's wrong with you? Yeah. And I just remember being like, I don't know. And that was the thing for so long, was I hated not knowing. And I think that's where the trauma turned into the force of needing to master things, and then inevitably having to let that go. Like a hunger for knowledge. I was like, I hated being confused. I hated not knowing why I was the way I was. It bothered me so much because I was always sad, always crying, so depressed. The weight of the world just lived on me. I don't know if you've ever seen The Secret Life of the Bees or read the book. No, I haven't. God, okay. I need to. It's Secret pretty good. Life of Bees, it's sad. It's sad, but it has like these little and by little, I mean very beautiful little ways of explaining or hinting at ideas that are very large and beyond us. And I just remember watching it, and I was like, oh, that kind of explains something that I was feeling when I was a kid. There was a twin sister, and her twin had like passed away, and she kind of explains that ever since her sister's passing, it just felt like she could feel all the pain of the world. Like it did something to her spirit to where she just became so raw and open to everything that the world is. And because there's so much pain and trauma in the world, it was just really, really heavy for her. And I remember being like, that's what I was experiencing as a kid, was like I became aware so heavily and so quickly. And then the idea of being mortal, right? And the inevitability of death, and not even my own death, but I was very close with my grandpa. The collective was just hitting you. Yeah, I was like, oh my God, like my grandpa has so much less time than me, and I'm getting like 5 years old, like bawling my eyes out because I'm like afraid my grandpa's gonna die. And my mom just being like, girl, like why are you worrying about that right now? I'm like, well, I don't know. I don't know. I literally have no idea, but it's just what was coming up for me, right? It's heavy. It was super heavy. And then on top of that, it was like, at daycare, every single kid had, a home life that, mom and dad maybe this, or, abandonment here, and things I didn't have, again, language for. Like, this kid feels abandonment. I don't know what, I didn't have a word for that, but like, I felt sad for them. I wanted to, and it was like I became the sponge. I was absorbing every bit of pain that everybody was exuding, and it was everyone. Like, even children are in pain, right?
Yeah.
And then you have, like, the elderly and grandmas and grandpas are in pain. Yeah. And then, and it's not always, like, a physical thing, but, like, especially adults. I feel like I always felt like I was more akin to wanting to be around the adults. And I think it was because it felt like they had a better understanding of how to deal with things. And then you learn as you grow that they are just coping and doing the thing. And some people are pretty sound of mind and body. Like, my parents always tried their best. They always learned when they could, grew when they could, tried to emotionally regulate when they could. They were partners. Like, they did so many things beautifully, but they also are just human. So I remember so vividly, like, seeing my mom cry for the first time because of, like, how it impacted me. Was like, oh my God, like, there's emotion and pain there. And then it instantly became mine. And so because of that, I had this journey of being and I'm really grateful for it now, because a lot of people, it's the opposite, where I had the journey of being a very low vibrational, depressed child, versus a lot of people having a brilliant childhood, or, you know, even like a semi-whatever childhood.
Sure.
And then growing up and having their first bout of depression, like midway through college or after their first kid or whatever. And then they're dealing with it for the first time ever. And they're like, is this?
Right.
Like, this is horrible. But
like everything else is icing.
Yeah, honestly, you know, I've never dealt with this before. And it kind of boggles my mind. I just had a client the other day who's like 33 years old. And they're like, this is the first time I've really dealt with anxiety. And I was like, this is your first. I was like, first of all,
congratulations.
Doubtful, but maybe you didn't notice before. Sure. I don't know. But I was like, that is crazy. There's no way. But it's because when I was a kid, I was racked with anxiety, social anxiety, depression, fearing for my life, because I was so obviously different than everyone. And not just because I was like breasty or bigger or of color or, you know, whatever, taller than most girls. There was all those like physical, normal reasons to bully a kid. But on top of that, I was this raw, open book that had no idea how to like shut, right? I was just like open.
Or how to identify, is this mine?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, that's still a practice sometimes. But it's also a beautiful tool, because then I can come into a room and influence the energies. But then I have to be really careful on closing those boundaries and closing those portals. But I've learned, again, that practice. Right. And so like as a kid, it was just like, damn. And it was, the world was ending like all the time, right? Like one little thing would happen. I'd be bullied really bad. I remember one time this kids like cut my hair while at school. And I gave myself an ulcer by the time I was in 8th grade, like throwing up every day, because I was just racked with anxiety.
Feeling.
And it was
all the feeling.
It was so much. I think about that time all the time, and it feels like I was like I was genuinely a different person. And I always remind people, like even my partner and my close friends now, like, especially when they give me those really, you're such like a bright person. Like, I just love being around you. You're just one of the best. And I'm just like, I gently remind sometimes, because I think it's even a reminder for myself. And I think I gain power from just saying it out loud. Like, I want you to know, like, this is a person that I created.
I chose this.
I chose this. Yeah. And because I feel like it also reminds people when they say something like that and they think I'm inherently a certain way, because it feels like that. Like, it's a part of me now, that I'm reminding them how much power we have. Like, I became this person that you're describing. And the way you would describe me now, obviously we all change from childhood to adulthood. Sure. But the way you're describing me inherently now is completely different than how I used to be. Sure. I mean, you pull me out from the past 15 years ago, 10 years ago, it's, like sugar addicted, depressed, anxious, attached, like crybaby. You know, that's who I was, like every day, in and out every single day. And it was like, I was a problem child in my family home, because I wasn't quote unquote normal. Like,
like just be normal.
Just
sit
stop.
down.
Why are you crying? And Aubrey, sorry to call out my sister, love her dearly. She's my mentor. We talked about this. But I remember one day she had a streak. And it was like day 124. She cried. It was like a crying streak of like how many days. She was like, you're going to go the whole year crying every day. Because like that was how I was. It was like there was always something every single day. Yeah. And so, sorry, long-winded way to say it. I remember I think I was like 14-ish. Maybe, I don't even know. Yeah. Ages. Time is so strange.
Time's relative.
Yeah, I
know it's a construct.
Adolescent. My brain wasn't fully developed yet. We'll just say that.
My frontal lobe wasn't done.
Not quite. Yeah, I wasn't done baking. I wasn't done cooking. But I remember, and again, it is all choice and practice, but it all does really stem from something. And I just have a very distinctive memory of waking up one day, feeling exactly the same as I always have, and just not wanting to take my medication, because I had been medicated for depression at a really young age for quite a while. Yeah, tried, you know how it is. You tried a bunch of different things. I landed on something. And that's a whole nother story and a bit of why like the medical field became such a goal of mine to try to understand.
Sure.
And again, that's a totally different story. But I remember waking up and just deciding like I'm done taking these meds. One, because I was so numb to the world. And I remember thinking, I was like, I think I would rather feel everything than nothing at all. And I was like, fuck it. Sorry.
You're okay. You're fine.
And just like stop taking my meds, which is super dangerous. I don't recommend that. My mom was like, you have to taper these things off. She was really upset about it. I was safe, but I did make that decision and I hid it from my parents for a while. And that was one of the bigger mistakes I made, because you do have to be careful. I just want to advocate for that. If you feel like you want to
not just decide to go off your meds. However.
Yes. And also like, even if you feel like the medication isn't your goal, maybe try other things beforehand. But we were so young. My mom worked in the medical field. Medication was just like the answer. Yeah. I've learned now in my adulthood and through my education that we can do non-pharmaceutical things, and we should try everything we can before we go to medication, especially when you aren't fully developed in your brain. I think that, again, my parents are doing the best they could with the knowledge they had. But I just inherently knew that this wasn't my path. Sure. Anyways, I decided I was like, I'm done. And I started to clear up a bit, which then my mom noticed because I became really manic and was like, the world's going to be fine. Like, I'm going to be fine and everything's great. And it was all emotion, right? Like, I just was very emotional in like a different aspect. And my mom caught on. She was like, you're not on your meds, are you? And I was like, no, I'm not. And I was like, and I made a conscious decision. It was around that same time, like literally that same day. I was just like, I want to be happy. And again, maybe it was just like a manic, intense, non-medicated thought, but it became so real for me that it's a choice. I didn't choose entering my body in the fashion that I did and being racked almost in a moment with intense emotion and this like raw ability to just really what felt like feel everything. Yeah. And I was like, I didn't get to choose that, but what I can choose, and this is before I learned anything about reaction versus, responding, and before my sister was a psychologist, and before I was, so this is just like inherent things that I was teaching myself. And I was like, I get to choose how I am inside of myself. Everything else is out of my control. But I was like, so if I can say that and think that, then that has to be real, right? Yeah. And I was like, okay, so I'm going to be happy. And not like, oh, now I'm happy, like that kind of thing. Right. But I remember it being like, I'm going to take action. I'm choosing joy. I'm going to try really, really freaking hard. And so it started with being like, okay, I'm not going to take meds anymore. Mom, can I start therapy? Right? Just like the normal things we would think of. And unfortunately, and almost fortunately, which is so crazy to say around this time, my grandpa died. The same fear that I always had. Like, one of my first fears when I was little was my grandpa traveled a lot. He was a Rolling Stone, as I always say. Like, where he laid his hat was his home. Yeah. He lived in Spokane, but he traveled to see all his grandkids. He had some in, like, Seattle area, Florida, Spokane. So he was all over the place. Yeah. And literally since that time when I was really little and I was terrified, I would tell my mom, like, my biggest fear is that grandpa's going to drive away and never come back. And that's exactly what happened. And I was like, well, damn, I just decided I wanted to be happy, but this is awful. Like, how am I supposed... As soon
as I chose this, the biggest fear I had was actualized.
It became real. And I was like, okay, so if I can find anything in any way to, like, still have that control during, like, this devastation, right? Mm-hmm. Like, I have to. So I started therapy, and because of the passing of my grandpa, and I never was born in a family with, like, religion. And girl, like, you want to talk about boxes. The idea of boxing spirituality into a religion is like a concept that really blows my mind now. But back then it was what's mainstream, right? Therapy, mainstream. Medication, mainstream. Religion, mainstream. So I was hitting all the things that were like in my face.
That, like, made sense.
Like, this is what people do. We go to church to have something bigger than ourselves. We get medicated to take care of ourselves. These are normal things, right? So that's how it started.
Yeah, very human solutions.
Yeah, very, very, I mean... And it's beautiful and it works for a lot of people, but you got to find your own thing. But grandpa passed, and he was like semi-Jehovah Witness. I don't know. It was all, he just had like a belief system of some kind. And so I remember being like, okay, I am going to find God. Like, I was like, I want to be happy. That's the next right
Going
thing.
on a bear hunt.
I
I'm
was
finding
like,
God.
I'm going to find God. Like, that's how people do it, right?
Yeah.
I'm not kidding you. I went to 13 different churches in 1 year in Spokane. I went with my uncle to like his Baptist church. I like went with friends to like their, Catholic church. I went to with another friend to their like, what's the one that starts with like a P? I don't know.
Presbyterian.
Thank you. Yes, that guy.
There are so many.
I literally tried
so many kinds of Christian in Spokane.
Every single church was different. My favorite were the ones that had live music, obviously. I love that concept.
Sing to me.
Sing to me. That concept of like, do you really need to go to church or do you just need to go to more concerts? Is kind of like, but
really though,
honestly, because it's just that idea of just like invoking something inside of a collective of people.
Yeah.
But I did. That's like how this literally was like the stepping stone. I ended up getting baptized in the Mormon church, which again is a totally different story. Let's not sidebar there.
Wow.
I know it was crazy times, but it altered me so much to the point where my entire family, my mom, my dad, and both my sisters ended up baptized too, because I went from almost night and day, not in like a moment, but like through time within that year.
But you sought transformation and you found it.
I did. And my family was like, my mom very specifically was just like, holy shit, like our depressed child is like smiling. Like, where's the magic in this? Like something is real. And also I think we all inherently want something bigger than ourselves. And because I was in a non-religious family that hadn't yet been practicing like meditation and collective like spirituality together, we were like, oh shoot, like let's do this. Like let's find God together. Cause like if she's gonna transform like this and be more connected to us, like I wanna be able to do that for my family too. Sure. So we all ended up in the church. It was very short-lived. I think within like less than a year, we were like, all right, we're done. But only because we found that things that didn't work for us. And that's totally fine. It's no disrespect to any organized religion. It's just some things that stem from certain kinds of histories or have certain beliefs or are very rigid. Like this is the one true church. Okay, yeah, but if I was born 6,000 miles east, like it would be different. Like, you know, so it just, me with the science background, I just asked too many questions. I mean, we're sitting in like seminary is what they call it, like 6 a.m. class.
My mom's whole side of the family is Mormon.
Oh yeah. And asking
so I grew up in the Mormon church with different pieces. I was blessed when I was a baby.
Oh wow.
All the things.
You are blessed though.
Yes, thank you.
Regardless of the church. But I just remember like asking so many questions and getting shut down all the time. And not like rudely, but sometimes I could tell I really had like peeved like, some people off.
Down.
Please stop asking questions.
The other little kids asking questions.
No, and same with my family. Like my dad would always have good questions, Aubrey too, and but that was how it really started in the sense of like decision of finding myself. And just to bring it back to like your question of like how did I get from that child to who I am today? I think just like anybody, through practicing being myself, right? But I would just like to point out that not everyone is gifted the structure and strength of having a family unit to have the freedom to break down on a daily so you can build yourself up.
Sure.
So
the emotional freedom to feel all the feels.
Yeah. I mean, my family unintentionally in so many ways did, traumatize me, as they should, because
But that's like part of the human experience. Like, no one should make it fully out, fully
I always
unscathed.
say trauma is the seasoning of life, and nobody wants unseasoned chicken, baby. Like, we need it spiced up just a bit, just enough for balance, right? We don't over salt it, but
Not
a little bit here and there is great. And it also gives me freedom too. Like I have a kid that I help raise. He's not my child, but he's been in my life since he was 1, and I love him dearly, like he's my own. And, on the days where I feel like I've definitely traumatized him, I remind myself, like, again, non-attachment, like I wasn't intentionally trying to hurt him. It's down to perception. He's just a child. Things are going to change. Life is going to happen. I can't control that, me not being able to show up today might feel like abandonment to him. Sure. So I remind myself, like, trauma is a seasoning of life, and like it can come in so many forms, even good things, and too much of it can feel like it. Like my family unit is a great example. Like we're so close, baptized together, close, and we love each other so dearly that I didn't realize I had the trauma of living for them and being severely attached to my family and their emotions and their outcomes. It was like, if my dad was having a bad day, I was having a bad day. Yeah. If mom is huffing and puffing in the house, it's probably because of me and I did something wrong. If my sister isn't happy with me, then I'm not worth anything. Like, that's what was happening because of the blessing and the beautiful of closeness. Like,
and love.
How can love and closeness be traumas? Because everything is really about balance, just like science and magic, right? It's about finding that in between where that's where we really want to live. It's not about being super high and manic. I know what that feels like. It's not about being super low and depressed. I know what that feels like. It's not about being so attached to someone and feeling so connected, or being so distant that I'm an individual woman. I don't
all
need,
of you.
Yeah, I don't need nobody. It's about that passion of being in between and the searching for that on a daily basis. And I feel like I was born in the right body at the right time with the right sexuality to be like, I am in between. Like, I am a half white, half black person. I'm, a woman that definitely feels a bit masculine sometimes, especially with PCOS, hormone imbalances, really it's so crazy because it's it doesn't offer clarity, but it offers so many questions. Yeah. So I can understand the trans community a bit better, is because you never know what the body is so capable of. Right. And then also being a bisexual, there's so many, and then I was the middle sister. Born to be in the middle of centered. Just center and the glue to just holding myself together is recognizing that it's not about one thing, or that it's about an outcome. It's really about how the experience feels and what I get out of it. That's what happened with the church thing. It was I had the experience, I saw how it felt, what I took from it, and then it snowballed into the next thing. Then all of a sudden, after Mormonism, it was okay, I'm gonna start. I don't even know what was after that, because that was such a blur.
My next was Buddhist.
Was it really? Yeah. Love that. Mine was Wiccan. It was I was I'm gonna do spells and change the world with leaves and feathers and
Earth magic.
Earth magic. Yeah, no, but for real. And then it was after that, it was atheism. Nothing's real.
Nothing.
It's all science and magic is not real, and da-da-da. And then it was reinforced that oh my God, there's so much more than this. And then after that, it was oh shit, I think I need to breathe. Yeah. I don't know how to breathe. I've lived for 20 years and never actually learned how to take a deep breath. That's crazy. Right. And then it was just meditation. And then it was journaling. And then it was reading and educating my mind. It was okay, so each time I found a footing, and then all of a sudden I literally just had this conversation with one of my good friends the other day where I have accumulated enough, not enough, because obviously life's going to continue.
However,
I've accumulated things throughout my life that have inevitably taught me one thing, that I have a spirit inside my body living a human experience. The church is my body. I don't have to conform to any one thing, whether it's religion, schooling, idea, being a nurse, whatever. I don't identify as one thing by any means. I don't even identify fully as a human or a woman or a being of color, because there's so much beyond that. But the one thing I do know is that I am here for exceptional experiences. That I do not get to choose what I look like, where I'm going, or what I'm doing on a daily basis, but I get to choose how I'm going to show up and what energy I put in and how I react and respond to all the things life throws at me. And that is just that. I feel all of a sudden, for at least me, and it doesn't have to be that same for everybody, I feel, I've written it in my journal many times, I believe I know what the meaning of life is. And that's it.
Right.
It's to literally experience. And so when I had that freedom, I was okay, now I get to practice non-attachment without being as scared. Obviously, I still have fear and doubt and shame and all the other things. But I get to liberate myself. I have the power. I wish I did bring my journal. I literally
same.
I did. I was my last passion was liberation. What does that mean? What am I liberating myself from? Do I have the power to do that? I think by asking the question, it inevitably shows me that I do. Just having that conversation with myself pretty consistently, because it's every day. It's a practice every day. Just because as soon as I feel I figured out ping, I feel amazing. My spirit is on fire. My human body is great. It's well, then tomorrow I might be depressed because of hormones and my period started and life is lifing, grandma's sick or whatever's going on. And so it's okay, well, then I have to do it again. I have to remind myself again. I have to show myself through my faith-based practices. And so it just became a journey of self-love, period. And I think that's how I ended up I sat down, great mentor Hannah, was well, what do you want to offer? You're Reiki, you're Reiki trained, you do Reiki great. Yeah. We love that you do tarot. We ask that
Love
of you
it.
and you show up and it's fantastic. Love that. But like, what do you want to offer? And I was like, good question. I have no idea. So I did exactly. Yeah, I did exactly what I just did with you. I kind of went through my life story and was like, well, what is it that I feel like I am a master in? Because that's the question, right?
What's your special sauce?
I can't master everything, but I am able to master something. Every single person is. And it might only be one thing, two things, what have you. And I'd rather be somebody who has a bunch of hands on little things and know enough, and then also look for those masters and other things. I was like, okay, well, what have I mastered? And the answer was, after a lot of meditation and journaling, was pretty clear. I was like, you know what? I truly, in these 20, and this was like a couple years ago, so 26 years at the time, so like 28 years now. In these 26 years, like, I have mastered the art of always offering myself love. Like, I may not always show up the best way. And right now I'm reworking on just like loyalty and trust with myself, going to the gym, showing up for myself how I would show up for others. So it's still a practice. But since I was 14, since that day I was like, I'm done taking meds. I want to be happy. I'm making the choice every single day until something comes of it. Since that moment, I started the practice of mastering self-love. And it's been so beautiful. Aubrey, my sister, psychology major over there. She's beautiful. Love her. She was the one who pointed out to me. She's like, Kianna, it's kind of amazing because like you come and you tell me stories like, and then I learned something in school and it has names, it has textbook entries on it. Like you're doing something that people literally have to be taught to do. One prime example was, I think I was like 16 and I started doing mirror work where I would stand in the mirror. This is before I had a language for it. So I'm going to use the language I have now, but back then I didn't know what to call it, but I would affirm myself. I would cry because I hated looking at myself because I was bullied so badly into believing I was not beautiful, right? And so I had these self-limiting beliefs and programming that I was combating. And I would just stand there and just like, okay, the first thing I started with was just like, I'm going to keep looking at myself until I stop crying. And then I'll start talking to myself. And then I started talking to myself. And then I started taking clothes off and then looking at myself like naked. And then like telling myself, even if I don't believe it. And then I was like doing these practices and I was explaining to my sister like, oh, okay, so like what I've been doing recently to try to, combat all these hard feelings and the sadness I was fighting every day was these practices. And then my sister would come to me like, oh my gosh, like affirmations are real.
It's for real.
It's a real thing. And actually this is how it changes the mind. Or like, looking at yourself in the mirror and, having reactions and then breathing through it. This is what it does to the nervous system. Like she was getting taught these things.
That's amazing.
That was just inherently something I was like showing myself. And it just reaffirmed to me that I'm communing with something. Like spirit and source is something that resides inside of me. And it's not found outside of me, but it also is everywhere. Right? Talk about like, I'm not Wiccan, I'm not Mormon, I'm not all these things, but I learned something about earth magic. I learned something from going into faith-based churches. Yeah. I learned something from having a psychology major as a sister. I learned something from having parents who came from way different walks of life. My mom's very great at like compartmentalizing. I am not, so it's like from every single person, every single thing, every reflection from but to some people that sounds exhausting. And to me, sometimes it is. Sometimes I sleep 15 hours because I'm like, you know what? Being alive today is a little rough, but I think because I'm not by any means better than any one person. My goal is only to ever be better than my yesterday self. But what I've learned is that I don't get to just go back to sleep. I don't get to yeet the soul out of my being that decided to wake up at 5 years old. And because I can't hush it, because if I try to shove it away, I hurt myself. That's a form of self-harm. And I talk about that with my clients. It's like anything that is not loving yourself, unfortunately, is a form of self-harm. And you can't, again, you're not going to convince me otherwise. Well, no, like when it was just this. It was just a little bit. Like I was only mean to myself for 2 seconds. Like
just a little.
And it's fine. And it's going to happen. I'm very guilty of self-harm in so many ways.
It's very human.
It's very human. I crapped on myself the other day, like, you're not smart enough for this. And then you know what pinged up? 2 seconds later, that voice that was like, hell no. Shut up. Like, no, false. You are so smart. You have learned so many things and you're going to be able to learn a lot more. But that's the practice, right? I went from it taking 2 years to be nice to myself to it being 2 seconds.
How quickly can you recalibrate?
Because that balance, right? Coming right back to it, that's what I was actually searching for the whole time without knowing it. Yeah. In that power of commanding and offering myself the strength of being in control of who I am, regardless of everyone else, regardless of my partner and how they're like acting and how they, if they're being crappy today. That's not on me.
It's not mine.
It's not mine. My older sister literally just told me yesterday that she's reading this book, and the concept is things that we all already learned in some fashion or another, but she liked the way this lady wrapped the present, right? And it was called, it's like the let 'em theory.
Yeah, Mel Robbins let them.
I literally just heard about this. I just heard about this
I'm so excited
yesterday.
to read it. Mel, please send it to me.
But it's true.
It's on my list. I'm so excited.
Right?
I was actually just thinking about how I wanted to go down in the library.
Like, we should book club
after this, because I want to see if they have it. And I was like, you know what? They probably don't. Someone's already checked it out for sure.
I've literally never heard about it until yesterday.
Well, she just published it like a couple months, like 2 months ago. Not even.
Love that for her.
Just published.
It's like the new Atomic
Atomic
Habits. Was
Oprah
like so
can't stop talking about it.
Love that.
And if Oprah loves it and talked to Mel about it on her podcast.
No, for real.
Like, but anyways.
It really like reaffirmed for me again, if you're listening, like Spirit's always talking to you. And if you're listening, your body's always talking to you. And again, it could feel exhausting to always be raw and aware and awake. But it's a way better existence than at any point disassociating or causing yourself pain by shutting yourself out. Yes, sometimes we need a break, and take that break even from yourself and your thoughts. But within moderation, again, just like everything, there's balance, right? And so like the let 'em theory, I think it also, she was talking about it against like everyone, right? Like my boss is being a dick. Okay, let 'em. It's not if they're gonna have those feelings and what have you. But as she was talking, and I slept on it, and I woke up this morning, and I was like, it applies to you as well, right?
I think the second half of the book is Let Me.
Is it?
It's like let them, and then let me is the second half. And she wrote it with her daughter.
Oh, I love that. Doing it once more where I'm conceptualizing.
I'm so excited about this book, and I'm so happy you wrote it.
But, where things are already inherently existing in the world, but I'm quote unquote, coming up with them myself.
Yeah.
Sorry, I just was thinking about a funny idea from when I was a child when talking about things I thought I made up. I had a dream. My little sister had gotten chicken pox. I gave them to her, and I was so afraid I was going to kill her. I was like, oh my God, I gave her chicken pox. We're all going to die. And this is back. I was like 7 years old.
And your big feelings.
Yes.
They're like,
oh my God. I was literally
this.
distraught. But I had a dream, and my dreams were so vivid. We could literally talk all day about like how crazy my dream life has been since that moment, since 5 to like now. It's literally insane. But I remember I had a dream, and my sister, my little baby, like she was a baby, like died. But then she reanimated and killed my whole family. Cool. I thought I invented zombies. I thought no one had ever thought about this before. And then I learned what zombies were later in life, and they became my biggest fear for a while. No, now my biggest fear is like unaccomplished purpose. But
I get that. Yeah.
But it was my biggest fear for a long time. So I was
potential.
like, I don't think you understand this, but like I was the first person to ever think about the dead coming back alive and being all like grotesque. But like that's the thing though, right? Is like everything was thought of by someone at some point, and then it's just kind of how you recreate it and like offer it to the world. So like my self-love program is not something that's like unheard of.
Sure.
Right. And it's just so funny because like I love that I had never heard of this book, but in some way, in some capacity, you are already living, if you're aware and trying to living in a way that incorporates some of those ideas and feelings.
Totally.
But yeah, now I'm gonna have to read it because
have you read Mel's other books? And like, are you familiar with her content? So just in general, she has this really diverse story, and she has a lot of failures and a lot of wins. But she blew up after she had her like viral TED Talk over a decade ago, and since then, it's fun to watch her create because she doesn't take like this. It's not about her. And she's not the person that's saying, I'm the first person that's ever thought of this. Like, this is purely unique to me. And like, because she has, her first book was The 5-Second Rule. And basically, she just decided the night before implementing the 5-second rule that in the morning, I am going to count down from 5 and get the fuck out of bed.
Oh my God, that's her?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, Hannah talks about that all the time.
Oh, Hannah loves Mel.
Okay. It's the same person
and
then.
She has the high five habit.
Okay.
And that was like the touch, like high fiving yourself in the mirror. And now she has Let Them.
Okay, cute.
And she has a podcast. And
I love that.
I'm gonna have to. Hannah's like taken her course and everything too.
I will have to look a bit more into it. I think part of it is like, honestly, I was so like waist deep in nursing school for so long. I'm now in the process of just like revamping my priorities and the things I want in life and educating myself in ways that aren't so quote unquote mainstream, because again, nursing is a great example of like, I don't know if I was doing it for myself or for others.
Interesting.
Yeah, so that's a big part of why I'm not leaning into it now, plus also like wanting to heal my body because nursing's rough. But that's a great example of just like, oh man, I was missing out. Like I wasn't paying attention. Like I didn't catch on to this wave of things happening, but like I'm here now and I definitely want to like partake, because I think it was Hannah who introduced me to the 5-second thing. And she was so funny. We were at the evolution class. Oh my God, haven't missed one. Literally everybody go to Anamkara if you can. But I go to her like New Year's evolution and she was talking about it and she's like, it doesn't work every time, blah, blah, blah. And Steph kind of agreed. And she's like, yeah, it could be hard. Da, da, da. And I raised my hand to say something, but I got like distracted. So I didn't end up saying it to her. So Hannah, this actually is for you because she did mention too. She's like, Kianna, you try to say something like twice and I keep on. And I had forgotten at that moment, but here it is. I've actually 100%ed it. And because I have a streak, I'm very careful when I use it because I don't want to mess my streak up. Yes. But like as soon as I start counting down from 5, like I know whatever it was I wanted to do is going to happen because I don't want to break my streak.
Yeah.
I literally am like, I'm so determined that.
Break your crying streak. You do not want to break your 5-second rule
That
streak.
was so long ago. I was literally like 9 when Aubrey was doing that. But yeah, I didn't get to tell Hannah that, but I was like, because she was like, oh, I haven't. I was like, okay, well that feels really cool. Like not that I'm like special or anything, but just because like I was so determined. And when I learned about it, again, I learned about it secondhand from one of my mentors, Hannah, and loved it instantly. I was like, that's so smart. And it's just like you versus you, which is such a beautiful thing.
Totally.
Because that's like the best place to be, right? When you're your only hurdle, like you're winning. Nothing's in your way besides you. Great. Love that.
Out of bed.
Literally though, but it can be hard. And but yeah, I have 100%ed it. So it's like as soon as I'm like, okay, I'm gonna count down from 5 and do the dishes, or I'm gonna count down from 5 and get up.
Building of trust with yourself, like you were mentioning before. Building confidence, regaining trust, loyalty to yourself, and that's where it starts. Is that like that's where confidence comes from?
Yeah.
Is rebuilding trust with yourself.
Yeah. I love that people describe me as like this confident person or like this bright, like loving, open person. I'm just like, girl, you have no idea.
It's a choice.
I was like, thank you for noticing all the hard work. But, you know, people perceive things so crazy in this world sometimes, and we don't have all the information. So we just assume like, oh man, I wish I could be like that. Right. Like you're a great example. Like I absolutely have struggled with structuring my own life because I've always been at the whim of school, work. Like I always was there for others because I'm inherently a giver, and I was so raw and open to the world. And before I learned to not necessarily only absorb like hate and pain, but also absorb like the love and light of the world and just fill myself up with that. Like before that practice came in, I was that people pleaser. I was out in the world being of service, giving myself away without knowing how to create boundaries or whatever. And it was a really like hard and dark time, but I felt like I was in the right place because my purpose that I have inside of being of service and being in the health field, or like what I really am like purpose driven by is preventative care. That's why I think Reiki, meditation, breathwork is really powerful tool, because we're really thinking about the now so that the later is easier. But I don't even remember what I was going to say. Oh, it was going to talk about you. Yes. Of course, you, because I love you. But I struggle with creating structure in my own life because I was always the whim of others. And this is something that's new for me. So like, I have not figured out all of life. I'm still growing and changing and learning. Yeah.
And I think anyone who says that they like, I've got it figured out, I'm like, you need to walk away because they're not.
No. Or not even I've got it figured out, but even come onto a podcast and just are like, I'm a master in this, and I'm going to talk about. Yes, thank you for having me. You're so right for having me here. No. Like it's more than that, because it's like I will forever be a student. I have no idea what's happening. So don't actually take everything I'm saying with a grain of salt and learn for yourself. But I just struggle with that. But then you were so kind enough to like give me your workbook.
Oh, the LV thing.
Yes.
And that was like just in practice when I talked to you. I was like, I was just experimenting with it. I was toying with it, and now it's on my website and live. But like, I'd only just like.
Is it? I didn't even know that.
I'm just playing with this idea, and I made a workbook for it, and do you want it?
No, I remember like losing the email too and like reaching out to you. Like I need it again so badly in my life. You have no idea. But I just think that it reminded me so much of myself where it's like, this is a person that didn't inherently just have these things. And somebody outside of having a closer relationship with you would see you and be like, wow, she's got it figured out. She knows what she's doing, and perceiving you in this way, right? Where I was like, in a very like humble way, like this is someone who had a different past, pain from, you know, the loss of father, the family dynamics changing, like all of these things, but is showing up in a way that is so different than what people may expect if they knew that. But because they know this, they're perceiving her from this area of like, wow, man, so great, so beautiful, love that, this is amazing. And I was just like, this is actually beautiful and amazing because this is a choice. Like she is choosing to want to structure her life and show up for her kids in a way that maybe she wasn't showing up for. Like there's so much intentional effort behind it, and I was like, man, I want to call that in. Like I need that so badly.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, because that's the goal. That's my like 2025 goal. It's like I literally bought one of those. They're literally called big ass calendars.
Yes.
Like my wall.
Love it?
Yes, because I was like never in my life.
And I've never done it, and I've seen it. The last
Do it because just having the
colors now.
Yeah, I mean, I got like
that held me back before. I didn't like the screaming colors. I can't.
Yeah, I got like the beige
My
one.
mom called me a beige mom. And I was like, you're not wrong.
I did. I got the beige one though because I wanted to be able to add my own color to it. Yeah.
Like, don't impose your crazy purple on.
No. I'm gonna use the little all the sticky notes, everything to just make it. But just I've never in my life, like I didn't even think that I was capable of that kind of intention, which is so crazy for someone who like preaches intention all the time, which is beautiful and amazing. But I was so good at it in one aspect of my life, which was spirituality, and then also knowledge because of school. But that's because something is set out for you, and then because you're afraid of upsetting a teacher, upsetting a classmate, a group member,
a locus of control.
I'm gonna show up. But then it's like going to the gym. If it's just me versus me, I'm gonna stay in bed, right?
Yeah.
But it's that power of like looking at my schedule and like, you know what, I only have 3 days this week where I'm gonna go to the gym. It's only 3 hours, and if you include driving, okay, maybe 4 hours, right? 4 hours of an entire week, and I can't show up for myself. That is
when you see it on a big ass calendar,
you're
like, oh my gosh, that's such a blip.
It's such a blip. And that's where that trust and loyalty comes in. Why am I so loyal to these outside entities that could really not like give a damn about me? And not only give a damn, but like I'm replaceable. But you know who I'm not replaceable to? Me. Like and it's like, that's again like that matrix and the concept of like, where do I begin and the world ends, or where does the world begin and I end? Yeah. But science has proved it to me, and spirit has proved it to me that like I am in way more control than the world wants to let us on. Like you've seen Bug's Life, right?
Oh yes.
Okay.
We just watched it. I have toddlers. Okay. I've seen Bug's Life.
So good, right? And it's like that ant idea. Like we come together, we're so powerful, but it's because of our power as individuals. Otherwise, we would just come together and be like a mass blob of nothingness.
Right.
But because we're all so powerful individually, that when we come together, it's like mass amount of power. That's why, like, even if you don't subscribe to religion, that's why like prayer groups work, right? Mm-hmm. That's why group meditation and circles changes people's life. Like,
energy speaks.
Yes, and it's so real. My dad, oh my God, we do full moon circles as a family every month. Like, it started because my family dynamic was kind of getting a little crazy. Aubrey was like in college. Trinity that's my younger sister. She was difficult. I was, back and forth between being manic and depressed all the time. Yep. And so I was like, family meetings. Like, I was like, we need to be on the same page or I'm going to like lose my mind. And you guys are the only thing I have in this world that actually makes sense and feels right. Yeah. So we started as family meetings. And that's how we ended up like being able to have like a family business that we have and everything now. It's because we came together all the time. And then it turned into me doing my practices, right? I was like meditating, lighting candles and just doing like candlelit meditations, getting little tuning forks, just like whatever I could to just like vibe, and vibe out. And it turned into, my mom calls it doing witchy shit. She's like, oh my God, we're gonna do witchy shit this month, like da-da-da. And it just turned into like my whole family kind of partaking in whatever ritual I was doing, or, and then Aubrey entered the spiritual world as well because she's smart. Yes. And so for her, she was like, this works, it's real.
Right. And
her conviction is so strong. She was like, it doesn't really matter what anyone else thinks.
Can't be convinced otherwise.
At this point, I don't care what anyone else thinks. Like, I know when I meditate, I'm a better person, period, point blank, period. Right. That's that, right?
Yeah.
So that's just how she is. And again, that's why I get so much strength from her, because I'm like, oh shit, like we can just do what we want to do.
Say what
You can just believe in whatever you want to believe. Like, okay,
and not
great.
Say about it.
So we were doing moon.
What's that like?
No, but for real, I've just gotten really lucky in the lottery of life with like my parents and my sisters, to be honest with you. I must have done something really good in a past life to like, for real. Like
Typically, they're like, you're welcome.
yes, no, for real. Like,
I love that.
but my dad, because so mind you, we've been doing family meetings for about, God, how old am I now? Almost 10
like
years.
12 years? Yeah.
Almost 10 years. 18, probably around that time. I'm
Sure.
28, so like 10 years. On and off. At one point, it was like every Sunday, and then it was like on and off as things got better. And then I've been doing full moon ritual, like home ritual, because I go to the moon circle with Autumn Carr for like the last 2 years. But I've been doing full moon ritual. So when did the world shut down? 2019. So like since
2020?
2020-ish, 2019, somewhere in there, like right before I started nursing school too, or like the prereq stuff, so like that around that time. So 2019, I started doing things at home, and then I like invite my sister. I was like, okay, Trini, come do this with me. Aubrey, come do this with me. Mom, come do this. Dad, you know, I got him to come like meditation a few times, whatever. Men are a little bit different. You incorporate them how they want to be incorporated. But then it turned into like a group thing. So now we have it in our calendar, like our family shared calendar. It's like, these are the full moons. We come to my sister's house. We do things together, and it's been happening for a couple years now. And we were literally, because the full moon was just the other night.
Yes.
We're at my sister's house, and Aubrey literally, okay, I'm sorry. It's so funny to me. I don't know if other people think it's funny, but Aubrey has like, we bought like, she got married this last year, and so when we did her bachelorette party, we wanted to have like wake up one day, do like brunch, and like do sound bowls and meditation. So I guided meditation. I bought sound bowls. Me and my sister went in on some like really nice ones, and so we had them all set up for the full moon thing we were doing. Right. They're like in the corner. Aubrey's like playing them a bit. I'm planning on playing them for the meditation. We journal, we do moon water, all the fun stuff. Yes. We all talk about intentions, our goals for the month, all the things.
Love it.
And Dad is sitting on the couch. And he goes, you guys know, like, sorry, it's so funny. So he was like, you guys know, like, vibration is real, right? Like, it can change your life. Me and Aubrey make eye contact from across the room. And I literally at this point, can't even help it. I'm just like, and Aubrey's full-blown sarcasm. Oh, no way, Dad. Are you really going to try to mansplain to me what vibrations can do? And I was like, this man over here preaching to the goddamn choir about vibrations and energies. I was just like, oh, Father, we love you.
Bless your heart.
Yes, but it just reminded me because like energy is real, and my dad like subscribes to that now. But it was just so funny because I was like, even in spirituality, we cannot escape mansplaining. But no, love him so dearly. But it was just so funny because me and my sister like looking at each other like, we've been trying to tell you this for literally a decade, bro. Like, we have been trying to get you to like understand that we can change who. And my dad is one of those great examples of being like a black man in America who was raised in semi-abusive home, alcoholism around, you know, all of the things. He didn't go to, you know, people think that my dad, and it's such like low bar. It's so sad because my dad didn't go to prison, has been with my mom and married faithfully for years, has 3 daughters who didn't have teen pregnancies, and 2 of them went to college, that he like won. Like, he's like, you can't do better than that. And we're just like, whoa, like, okay.
You can. Yeah. Good on you.
Yes.
So proud of you.
So proud. But it's more than that.
If your vibration and energy, you can do so much.
So much. But it's so much more than that. Like, my dad, like, that's what people are seeing on the outside. My dad has also learned things about trauma healing. And, you know, he's a brilliant mind. My dad is extremely smart, but he did not go to college. Like, he made choices to, like, raise his family, made sacrifices. And he made sure him and my mom could together made sure that me and my sisters didn't have to make those same sacrifices, so that I could, that's what I was talking about, like that support. So I could be so emotionally raw and quote unquote broken. I now, as a self-love coach, I don't believe in broken humans. I think that some parts of us just hurt and they feel distant, but you're never broken. But that's just something I've learned. But back then, that's how I would have described it, is like being this very broken child, having parents that were just like, we got you. I don't understand, but I accept you.
That's wild.
Yeah.
And huge, especially growing up in the 90s.
Yeah. For like a blip.
Parenting is a thing now, and I'm like, girlfriend,
I don't know.
Having like big, because I think of my daughter very similarly to you, where I'm like, there is something else going on that I am not even equipped to understand in this lifetime. Like, you were sent to this home because I hope that, like, I was supposed to be your shepherd.
Yeah.
Like,
I will do my best.
I'm doing what I can with what I have.
We will traumatize you because we love you.
Some people happen.
Something will happen.
And I can't avoid you going to therapy, but I promise I'm trying. But she has these, like, it's this other energy about her that, like, our son is a very standard kid. He is who we expected to have. He is this brand new soul, and just everything is fun to Milo. He's this sweet little peach. And Mila, I mean, and Eloise is like, she came out, and you have that moment where the baby's on your chest, and it's supposed to be so magical or whatever. And she propped herself up, furrowed her brow, and it was like,
why am I
this
here
again?
Jeez.
Again?
Again?
And William and I look at each other, I'm like, did you see that?
Yeah.
He goes, yes, but I don't think I would have believed it if you had told, because it's a newborn. They're not supposed to be able to hold their heads up. She props herself in this look of disdain for earthly experience. She's like, I thought I escaped this. I thought I did my job.
That reminds me of, Tara.
Yes.
Tara Pratt, love her so dearly. She always is like, like, this is my last go around. Like, I'm totally going to, like, yeet myself out of this existence and be, like, in the ethers. And I'm like, girl, just because you're saying that, you're going to be that baby. The one that's like, this again? Dang, I thought I was done.
No.
I love her so much. She's one of my absolute favorite humans.
Yes.
But it's just so funny because, I believe in reincarnation so deeply. And, again, it's just, like, one of those things you can't, no matter what your religious background is, your beliefs, whatever stories you and testimonies you have to try to express or explain to me, like, yes, no, heaven and hell is real, blah, blah, whatever it is, like, I just can't, ever since I was, like, a little girl, could not shake the feeling that, like, I had been here before. So because of that, I know it's real. Like, there's nothing, there's no story, there's no thing that happened. Yes, like indigo children, all this stuff, like, really helped kind of amplify the idea of reincarnation, but it had nothing to do with that. It was just like me being aware that, like, this is not my first go around, nor will it be my last. Like, and that's just real to me,
Me too. I believe the same, and I look at my kids and it affirms it for me.
Yeah.
And I see Milo, I see both of them at very different phases of their soul's like, experience.
Yeah.
And I believe it even more every time I watch them interact with the world. But my story, I was like, where was I going with that? But
so sorry.
No, not at all. I veer off all the time. But being raised in the 90s versus being raised now, or like
the gentle parenting.
The gentle parenting, like, oh, we don't use the N-word being no. Like, we don't say no to our kids.
What?
And we don't this. And we don't ever raise our voice. And just all of these things.
That sounds like insanity.
It's yes, there's a fine line. And I'm like, girlfriend, I'm trying to be as gentle as I can. And there is like I was hit as a kid. Like I was hit too much. And like there's spanking, there's abuses and traumas in my childhood that I'm sure I'll dive into more as like this show progresses in general. But like, girl, I would have been whacked.
Yeah.
I would have been told to stop crying, to figure it out, to go to my room and handle it myself.
Yeah.
But it is, I have to like see her experiencing this rawness of life and realize that she is able to express these things. You were able to express those things. He is able to express that, like, oh my gosh, or accept that there's vibration and energy is real, because he finally feels safe to do it.
Yeah. Dad had a totally different upbringing than us, and he always says that us girls raised him right, because my parents were really young parents too. My mom had my oldest sister at 19, and they've been together since my mom was like 14, my dad was like 16, so like really, really young. And I think it's so funny, that gentle parenting, when it's like, I was a gentle parent, we don't have gentle kids. Like, my kid is rough. But my dad, he's a great example though, like of what you're saying. Like, I don't think he inherently gentle parented all the time, but there was like moments, because you were telling your story and I literally had this flashback to when the world was ending. I remember it was like a Friday the 13th, and this made me literally think that Friday the 13th were like cursed, because it was like every Friday the 13th I had like a breakdown. And girl, I'm like full of breakdowns. Like, it happened, it's so far and few now that like, but back then, like, oh my God, I was just distraught like all the time. And I remember we had our TV room at the time. My dad used to play video games. He only played video games for like a spurt back in the day. But he's upstairs playing video games. I cannot tell you what actually happened. I don't know what it was that made me think the world was going to end. But I come into the room and I'm just like bawling and like freaking out on my dad. And he's just like playing his game and he's looking at me. He's like, what are you on about? And I'm just like crying and crying and crying. And he just was like, I don't agree that this emotion that you're experiencing through that what happened to you is like equal. Like you're not like him being like you're making a mountain out of a molehill, but he was just like, you really need to try to calm yourself down, which really like at the time like pissed me off. So I'm just like, I'm like literally in the corner, like flailing around, like like being crazy.
Yes.
And I cried and cried and cried and cried. And I was in the room with my dad, like crying, so mad that he just didn't understand me. But not at any moment did he leave my side. He kept playing his games, and literally it was like as soon as I had like tired myself out and I crying like stopped, it was like that same second that breath happens where you're like, okay, I'm done. Yes. That my dad like looks away from his game and he's like, you good now? But like he didn't let me be alone in it. Like he did not understand anything that was happening. Yes. But he's always had full acceptance of like this is
fear your emotion to the degree that he asked you to go feel it somewhere else.
No, he wasn't like, you need to stop crying, you need to shut up, like this is so bad, like what are you on? He was just like, I do not get why you're so upset right now, but if you need to cry over here and yell at me, I'm your safe space to do so. And so I think that because my parents and my dad has always been that for us, like us girls, as we've gotten older and we've realized my dad's downfalls and my mom's downfalls and that they're just humans experiencing life, quote unquote, for the first time as who they are. Yeah. My mom's just a girl, my dad's just a guy, right? Yeah. That we have been able to return that favor of safe space for him so he can say hilarious things like, did you guys know that vibrations are like energy and it can heal and change your life? Like,
it's so
yeah,
sweet,
Dad,
though. But it's such a wholesome moment.
It is. And he also is just adorable as hell. Yeah. Like, he's so cute. And so I literally was in the kitchen just like, where have you been? Uh-huh. Okay, Dad. So glad you're here.
Welcome to the party.
Yes. No, but he partakes more and more and more each time. And my mom, she's just gung-ho about pretty much anything that connects her to her girls because she's just like an epic mother. And then she was one of those people who had succumbed to the matrix, right? Like she was just a mom for so long. And it was us getting older to remind her and being like, you are so much more than just this wife, just this mother, just this homemaker, just this surgical technician, because she worked in the hospital. Like you are not these things. And I feel like in the last maybe like 6-7 years, I've really been able to watch her blossom into just like who she is, and asking those hard questions between herself and between her and my dad, because they were this unit and they were together from so young. That it just became like this combination of not knowing where I start, you end.
Codependence.
Yeah. And so just watching them like break through those things, and it just is so reassuring that like the practices that I've been putting into place and that my sisters have been putting into place and my parents, like it doesn't only affect you when you're doing that self-love care and taking care of yourself and having control with your own mind and body. It inevitably affects your close units and the world around you. And that's why in my self-love coaching, I always come back to when you feel like you're being selfish by choosing yourself and you feel like you're being selfish for setting those boundaries for yourself, you're actually not. It's a selfless act, because the better you treat yourself, the better you can serve others. And
holy.
Yeah. And that just comes from practice. And then later the language changes, right? Like, oh, all of a sudden I don't feel as bad if I take care of myself. And yes, it makes so-and-so, my boss, feel like they're not being seen because I had to take 2 days off. Like, okay, whatever. Like everybody should go take 2 days off. But I'm not worried about it as much. And the more I, do what the author was saying is like, let them have their feelings and take care of me. Actually, I'm able to show up better the next time. And hopefully people catch on and are influenced by that positively. But sometimes people just don't like when you're strong and capable and confident, and that's okay. They don't have to like it. But usually they don't like it because they lack it from within themselves. So it's not even about you. So
it's not yours.
It's not yours to carry. Yep. And you just gotta hope and pray that every person you care about does stick on and see you for who you are and allow them to be seen by you. Because I run into that all the time, because I see people and I don't succumb to like bullshit a lot of the times.
Sure.
I lose a lot of people in my life, and that's okay because it's freedom and people are allowed to.
They serve their role in your life and you served your role in theirs.
And I don't attach I used to, best friends, right? We're best friends. And they leave and it's like, oh, distraught. I need closure, sadness, even like relationships. I was like with this guy for like 7 years. It was like, people thought I was crazy because I left him and they're like, you haven't even like cried. I'm like, well, I'm not sad. Like it was what it was. I learned this from it. Isn't that the purpose? I'm not, it was hard because at first when I was trying to leave, I was like, oh my God, me taking care of myself and me choosing myself is going to inevitably cause sadness and harm in someone, especially because there was a kid involved. I was so terrified.
Yeah.
But then I went to an I am retreat. Love them.
Love it.
And I remember journaling and being like, my joy does not equate other people's pain because it's not mine to carry. My choice is if they hurt you, you need to look at yourself and ask why, just like I would, because I would never put that on someone else.
Sure.
And because that's how I perceive the world, that I'm not going to make my pain other people's problems, that I'm not going to allow other people to make their pain mine. And it's hard because I love and I care, and pain is real, you know, and grief is real. So I'm not negating that human experience, but I'm not going to carry any more than I'm inherently supposed to. And that's just that. And it's a practice. It's like every day, letting go a little bit more, strengthening myself a little bit more. But
it's all a choice.
It really is.
All
and also like
choice.
perception. I think that like, you know, got to take our lenses off sometimes and listen to people. Constructive criticism is good. Listening when people have something to say about you, listen. And if they're wrong and you have done a lot of practice in your life, you'll be able to know and be like, okay, this is just pain from them speaking on me versus like someone like maybe your mother or someone like you that if, you know, you saw something in me or I'm hurting myself, you remind me like, you're better than this, or, you know, this is happening and I can see that you're struggling, and it just makes a little bit more sense to maybe see it differently. Like you have to be open to that, because sometimes the reflections of other reinforce your beliefs in yourself, and sometimes they give you an opportunity and that freedom to say, you know, I think I should change here. And that's what you get from other people. It's not the, oh, I should please you so you can be happy. So I can, it's actually everything's a reflection. Everything is like a human experience, but you're the human experiencing it. You're not everyone else. So it's like,
It's also relevant.
yeah. Exceptional experiences I'm here to experience, and not every exceptional experience is high vibrational. So I'm here for those other ones. The day that my parents inevitably pass on to the next plane, like I will be there. I will be there having that experience, and it'll be hard and terrible and whatever, but it's just as important and just as beautiful as the day my sister got married or whatever, those higher vibrational, quote unquote. I try to stay away from the language of like bad day versus good day. I don't believe there's such a thing. There's just days, and we are experiencing what we're experiencing. And if on this day my hormones are all over the place and I'm sad and I can't do the dishes and I just try to be as kind to myself that day as I would on the day where I'm glowing and vibing.
Quotes, crushing it.
Crushing it, man. Making money, doing all the things.
Yeah.
And I also stay away from like super high manics. Like I go and I, you know, I just did a birthday party. I read for like 30 people, and that kind of energy input. Whew, I was riding high. Yes. I got in my car, and because I could feel that I hadn't really closed that portal, and I was getting to a manic state where I was like, oh my God, go. Like this is crazy. Like amazing. I'm amazing. Everything's amazing. I was like, whoa, deep breath. Everything technically is amazing. That's not wrong. But that energy is just as bad as getting to that low. You got to balance, right? Bringing myself down so I don't ruin that experience, right? Myself, or self-sabotage in a way, or not have clarity, because even manic high vibrational can cause disruption, just like a low vibration can. Like you talk about brain fog when we're depressed, but what about mania, right? So just like to put that out there, like happiness isn't necessarily the goal. It is not like something that you can end up and then just stay there. It's a state of mind that comes in waves, just like everything else, right? And it's just the idea of like waking up each day hoping that it comes at some point and that you can hold on to it for as long as you can. And when it goes away, not shitting on yourself, but knowing that that's just where you are now, and it will inevitably come back. And then it's a cycle, and it continues to happen. And it's like you're just flowing. You're just on the wave.
Yes. There's this book, The Book of Joy, and it's written by this other guy, but he wrote it based on interviews with Desmond Tutu and the Dalai Lama together for, I think it was the Dalai Lama's birthday. Have you seen that one? It's so good. But basically, this reporter of sorts does this really great job taking the lessons of the Dalai Lama and Desmond Tutu to reflect on happiness versus joy and the importance of the ups and the downs. And choosing joy is being able to make the choice to see the light in both your highs and your lows, and to know always that it's temporary, that this too shall pass.
Yeah. Aubrey, bringing it back to her, because that's my girl right there. She introduced me to Vipassana, you know, and it's like a meditation style, but there's also retreats where you go and you participate in a 10-day silent retreat. There's longer ones, but you have to start with a 10-day one. You can't do like 100 days right off the bat. I don't even think there's 100 days, but I'm just saying you can't get too crazy.
Yes.
But the Inicha, right? I think it's Sanskrit for like nothing lasts or everything comes to an end. It's like one of those type of things. But I just remember like my first time going, and that concept feeling so real, right? Like we won't even, our memory won't even, like everything ends, which can be a very daunting and scary thing. But at the same time, it comes back to that liberation. It frees you from the shackles of perception and idea of like what things should be or what they're supposed to look like or how they're supposed to feel. Because technically, none of that's real. It's all like in flux. Like we're not going to always feel this way. Sometimes it feels like it, right? Like you're in pain and grief. And like I lost my grandpa. It still feels, some days it still feels like it was yesterday or even today that I lost him. And it hurts. But that just goes to show that like time's not real, right? Grief is a cycle that continues and moves forth. It's not like, oh, you just have the 6, you know, you go from anger, bargaining, blah, 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 to, you know, acceptance. And then you're just like, boom, done. It's like, no, then you went to acceptance, you accepted. And then 2 weeks later, it's the anniversary of their death and you're right back to anger. Like, you know, it constantly is in flow and flux. So if we try to hold on too tight, that's when we hurt ourselves. Because if I'm not like just happy all the time and I don't keep my wife happy and I don't keep my family, then I'm a terrible husband and I failed, blah, blah, blah. It's like, actually, no, like your wife is their own being and everything is going to change and it's going to also continue to change. So like holding on to any one thing just like strangles the ability to have any joy out of it. Like it just blocks it completely. It's even something like the passing of a parent. I mean, I can't tell you how many times in hospice where it's like, I see the patient's family struggle with that duality of like, I'm relieved they're gone, but shackled to this idea of grief and I can't let go that they're gone. But also it's like so much of this.
Yes.
And it's like, bro, they live at the exact same time. And it also is going to change. And we will never fully understand it. So try to just experience it versus understanding, accepting it versus the understanding of it. Like my parents with me. Like I have really subscribed to I will always do my best to accept you versus my best to understand you. Because I hardly understand myself. How the hell am I supposed to understand somebody else? But I can sure as hell like accept you to the best of my ability, accept your experiences, accept your perception on life, and also accept the fact that you inevitably will change too. Just like I will, and accept that I also will.
Hold loosely to both my interpretation of myself and my interpretation of you.
Yeah. So it just offers freedom. And I think Vipassana is a great tool for that because learning it and practicing it daily, weekly, yearly, whatever it is you're going to do. If you meditate once a year, you're still meditating, you know, if it's daily. But it just offers that freedom. Again, it could be all daunting, just like death. It's freedom, but it's also very daunting. So it's like you can be scared and fearful of it sometimes. And then sometimes you can be like, excited. It's like, have you seen those TikToks where they're like, I live by myself, and they're like in their room like raging, and it's like, I live by myself, and it's like them like sitting in the bed crying, or they're like you know, like I have free will, and it's like them like dancing on the counter, and it's like I have free will, and it's them just like scrolling. Like it's that idea that like at any moment everything has duality. It can be a positive, quote unquote positive, or a negative, quote unquote. So
and the perception is key.
Yeah, you can't really like deem one thing something, right? You can't deem like this kind of experience something beautiful. Like my sister's wedding, for example. It was a beautiful day. It's supposed to be this amazing thing. I'm sitting there duality, right? My sister's getting married. I love my new brother. I'm so happy for her. I'm so happy I could be here. I did everything I can to make it a beautiful day. It's one of the best days of my life. I'm also so sad. I'm so sad to be like, my sister's changing her last name. I'm like losing a part of who she is to me. And like, she's starting her own family. Like she's moving, like all of these things. And it's like, how am I sitting here absolutely thrilled and amazed by like love, and then also want to like punch everyone in the face? Like, how do they both exist? But they just do. They just do. And also, it's going to change. I knew I wasn't going to feel like that always. So you know what? Yeah. It's gonna be okay.
Just feel through it.
Just feel through it, and also experience it. Just brings us back to like, no matter where you are in that vibrational field. And I don't know who you were speaking on. It was an author or a video. You said something about working with Dalai Lama.
Oh, it was the book. It's called The Book of Joy.
Yeah, The Book of Joy. So it brings it right back to that, where it's like you give yourself just as much intentional love and acceptance in those lower vibrational or like lower experiences as you would the high ones. And everything's about bringing yourself back to that balance so that you can just continue to enjoy as much as you can. And I'm not talking about like being a sociopath and go and start enjoying all the bad things in the world, but you're able to find something in everything. I firmly believe that. I used to kind of say like everything happens for a reason, but I think that sort of tips into this toxic positivity world because we don't really know what the reasons are or like if that is true. You can believe in fate, you can believe all those things. I don't know, so I can't necessarily speak on it. But like bad things do happen, you know, so you can't necessarily like outjoy life lifing at you and terrible things happening. Yes. But what you can do is still have that control of how you show up regardless of those things. And that right there is the lifeline to joy, right? Is that control of self, that control of knowing I can be kind to myself even when the world is shitting on me. I can show up for myself even if the people that I love the most are no longer here. Like those hard things in life can still have even an inkling of love and joy because you're there. And that's why self-love is so important because no matter what's happening in the world, if you are there with yourself, you're never alone. Yeah. And you don't have to experience something without having a heart, a soul, and a hand to like hold, like to guide you and hold you. And it's you. And it's such a, like, and when you come back to that time and time again and strengthen that, it's almost insane how like powerful you feel within your own right. On the days where I'm like, didn't go to the gym and my tummy hurts and I'm so sad. I don't even know why. My thyroid like is not where I want it to be and I'm like needing to heal and I'm just like racked with all these like devastating things and I'm just like, I don't love myself any less. Right there, being it's like I'm actually as happy as I could be, even though I'm crying and and I'm seemingly on the outside so upset. But what people don't know unless they directly ask me and I explain to them is like, oh, I'm just allowing myself to feel these things because I'm human and I want to because I deserve to feel
through it instead of shoving
whatever
it to the dark
it is
place.
I want to feel because I love myself. I'm not complaining and crying and shitting on myself. You know, I'm experiencing life and I'm not going to take that away from myself and lean into this toxic positive kind of thing.
So important. Don't shove it into the dark place.
No, please don't. Because
please don't.
I think that bringing stuff to the light is where
dis-ease.
Bringing stuff to the light is exactly where you take the power away from them and give it back to yourself. So shadow work is dude, we could talk about shadow work forever.
That's a whole other episode. Like that should be our next episode.
But that's like where I normally will start with self-love, depending on where people are in my coaching. Shadow work is usually where we have to start because it's like you haven't even looked at the things you don't want to look at. It makes you so uncomfortable. How about we just try the first step? And it could take years, unfortunately, but you know, it depends on how much you're practicing and how much you're putting into it.
How open you are.
Yes, very, very vulnerable practice. But taking a look at the things that make you uncomfortable and becoming more comfortable with them, and then you can alter and change. But you can't really do anything until you're like, oh, this is who I am, all of me. This is all of who I am. Because if I'm going to move myself to the next me, I have to take all of it with me. Because you can't cut yourself into pieces. It's wholly you. It's all of you. And like that's why being whole and being full, feeling complete, that world card, you know, like a tarot reader, like just completion is so important to me because that's where balance comes from, is knowing that like even the parts of myself that are racked with either grief or whatever is still a part of me and they're loved just as dearly. Just as much as any other part. Because if we only can love parts of ourselves, then that's not actually self-love. Right. You're loving yourself with condition, which is extremely unfair.
Yeah.
Love others with condition. Please, by all means, set your boundaries. Sure. But those sacred boundaries, a sacred boundary I have with myself is that I will love all parts of myself, right? It's completely different how you treat yourself. Like you don't, if a man's in your life being toxic and abusive and drop him.
Get out.
Lose the 180 pounds. Goodbye. But if you're doing it to yourself, that's where the work has to come in, right? Take a look at it. Where is it stemming from? Why are you doing that? What's the story? Blah, blah, blah. What are all the things that I spend months and months working with my clients on, right?
Yeah.
Because that's where you find, and again, this is where like the science meets the magic. This is psychology, effort, practice, synapse changes of the brain, turning into enlightenment. Right? It's all connected. So again, you cannot convince me that you can't do one without the other, and you can't have a human experience without the spirit. You can't have a spiritual experience without the It's just like it all is
all it.
Yes. There is no distinct difference by any means. I don't know how much time we have left, but
there's technically no time limit on these shows.
Okay, cool.
We can talk
listen to me forever. No, I'm just kidding.
Yes.
It makes me think about, because I wanted to come back to like your original question, right? And as a lover of science, a lover of the spirit, and a lover of myself, I again, hippie nurse over here, when I was doing my final thesis and project for nursing school, because you have to do this like whole, it's like you spent all these years learning, and then you basically put a concept together that you learned in like, not necessarily how you would change it, but how you would like take it into your practice, and how it like is important to like the medical field, and how it can like change and alter patients' lives, right? So some people are doing it on like, oh, in the OR, there's this new technology and this is how it's used and da-da-da. Or, you know, in emergency evacuation scenarios, this is what it looks like. These are the policies, and this is what policy looks like. There's like lots of different ways to go about it. I reached out to my teacher and was like, hey, I would like to do my project on spiritual distress.
Interesting.
What? They were like,
Question mark.
What does that mean? And how can you, because there's something called the nursing process. So everything we do, you basically spend the first part of your nursing schooling learning the nursing process. And then you apply everything to that process.
Yes.
And the question always is okay, well, how does this apply to patients? How do you apply it as a nurse? What is the outcomes? How can we change it so we can have better outcomes? Like that's the process, right? And that's the very boiled down version of what it is. But okay, so putting together this project was so clear to me. And I remember it was one of those days where I love public speaking. I'm one of those like crazy people that like doesn't have fear in it. I was so excited to share my project. And I remember at the end, literally everybody like clapping and just giving me so much praise, because they're like, wow, like that was so passionate. I learned something so new. Like it was so crazy. I never even thought about that. But mind you, I was doing my precepting in hospice because again, I had found that where can my love for nursing and my love for the spirit connect? And I call it transitioning nursing, where it's like you transition, because I also find this joy with like labor and delivery. So it's like when you're transitioning a life and a spirit into this world, and when you're helping transition a life and a spirit out of this world, like those areas where those like veils are a bit thinner is where I'm like, oh, this is where I thrive in the world of nursing.
Right.
And so I had been with my preceptor for a whole semester, which is a while. It's like a little over like 6 months, because it's like it's like a long bout of time. And I absolutely loved being with her. I learned so much, and I had done hospice as a CNA for like 7 years. So this was not my first experience. I ended up there because I knew I loved it from my past experiences. And you talked about one of your kids having like a new spirit. You could tell. It's always so surreal when I would be like, because I started CNA when I was like 19. So like 19, 20, so young, 20 years old, being in a room with someone like literally on their deathbed, and them just being little babies, like so new, so scared, so unsure about everything, and looking at you and knowing that you're an old spirit, and like being asked at like 20 years old from family members and stuff, like these really deep, and they would hand me like a pamphlet. They're like, here's the pamphlet on hospice. Good luck. And I would just like be glad that it's me, because I inherently just had some abilities of like easing and having like a balm to like the situations happening, and just having like, I don't know, like a connection to this kind of work. So I was just good at it. I found a purpose and a passion there. But it was so hard when you would notice a human being that never did the work. And by never, I mean they were here. They were experiencing, they lived amongst the matrix, they had their kids, but it was so often where it was like, I haven't talked to my daughter in 20 years because the one time her husband disrespected. Like literally it was like so much family drama and stuff that comes from like these little like, I don't know how to say it without feeling like I'm demeaning others and their choices, but like they would just create so much distance based off of things that are technically not real, right? Yeah. Like pain changes, like people's perspective change. You haven't talked to your daughter in 20 years, she's probably a different person. And if she's not, then like, damn, like they need to do the work too, and just like grow and become a better version of themselves. And some people don't, but I would just run into it all the time where it was like, this person literally has so many regrets. This person literally has never breathed a day in their life, like really intentionally, like they're 90 years old. And have you ever taken a like intentional deep breath when the doctor is not sitting there saying, take a deep breath? Right. I learned that in nursing too, that I can't tell you how many times I would be doing like a physical on someone, and I'd be like, okay, like take a deep breath, and they wouldn't know how to, and having to coach them and being taught as a nurse how to teach someone to take a deep breath so that you can listen to their lungs. Insanity. Like how do we, walking too. Like people don't walk correctly. Like we don't carry ourselves correctly. It's literally like every little thing, right? So it's like no wonder people are walking around with so much pain. We aren't taught how to love and care for ourselves. And so I would see these people in hospice. So quite literally like the deathbed, right? It might take 6 months, might take 6 days. Either way, we are transitioning out of this world. And you would know when the people are the ones who like learn to love themselves, learn to put love into the universe, because they're the ones that, yes, there may be fear because we're human and we're not all like super crazy, but sometimes there wouldn't be. It'd be like, I'm ready for this next adventure. Like I'm going to move on, and it's going to be like, and I'm gone, right? And then there'd be the times where it's like you could literally see them fighting. Like my grandma, my mom's a great example. I remember the day I came over to her house, and she had diabetes, and she was like, oh, there's something on my foot. And I remember even just like my mom sent me there to look at her foot, and I was like, oh, this is the beginning of the end. Like I already knew that.
It's coming.
And there was just the tiniest little red dot on her toe, and I saw it clear as day right there. I was like, this is gonna get bad. This is gonna get bad, maybe way quicker than I'd like to admit. And I think within a 2-year span, she was gone. She had surgery, couldn't heal, all the gambit, right? And she looked at me, because I remember trying to get her to take it like a little bit more seriously, and she just didn't believe that she could or would die. Like that fear was so intense that she was like, oh, don't worry about it.
Right. It's not going to happen.
It's not going to happen. Okay, well, first of all,
but
it happens
the physical signs are
it
themselves.
happens to all of us.
You don't make it out alive.
No, and I just remember, like, I say but not everybody knows this, but a lot of people at the end of their life go into sort of what seems like a coma, where they're just like not awake, but they're breathing and alive, yet they're slowly sort of transitioning. And in that time, you can really tell, this is what comes back to my project that I did. You can really tell the difference between someone who has done this internal work and is like prepared to ease themselves into this next thing, and the other people who are fighting against it, which would be the spiritual distress. I remember working with my preceptor. We had this woman, and you could tell her son had even stated like she was not ready for this. And you can never really be ready for death, but I'm going to get to my point on what that means to quote unquote be ready. But it was like thrashing, right? She's in that coma-like state where her eyes aren't really opening. And when they are open, it's like this wide-eyed terror in their face. The heavy breathing, can't breathe, I'm afraid, this is scary. And she had lung issues. And so the fear on top of that was causing so much distress. And it's like the thrashing in bed, the agonal breathing, like it was just like, and we would have to medicate, right? Like that's what you do as a hospital nurse. You go in, you're like, okay, like they're obviously in distress and in pain. So we're going to give them the morphine, get their breathing to calm down, get them to a place, even if they're in here doing that, at least their body's not showing all these epic signs of horror. And I remember being there and medicating her, and it just like pinged in my brain. I was like, how do you prevent this? Death is going to be scary for anyone and everyone. Especially for someone like me who seems like, Inicha, like we're going to let it all go. But even that, because I love my life as Kianna so much, I will mourn the loss of it. Like I love being here as who I am in this moment. And that will cause me pain, but because I'm aware of those things, it'll be a bit easier for me versus someone else. Yes. And so when I was telling my teacher the initial, and obviously my project, I ironed it out, and it's beautiful. I will literally send it to you if you want. I was so happy. I like did it for my sister when I went home. I was like, it's so good, I have to tell you. But when they were like, so how does this apply to patients? Because a lot of times when we say apply to patient, it's like, well, they come in with a heart disorder, whatever. And it's like the after things. Like, okay, we're going to apply these medications. This is what the medication does. This is how it affects you. This is how it's going to help the patient. Well, my whole project was like, okay, this is what spiritual distress is. How it applies to the patient and what we can do as nurses is actually nothing for them in that moment. It has everything to do with preventative care. This is years in the making. That woman that was struggling so hard would have had a much easier bout with her death experience if she had less regrets and less pain in her life. If she had done what we were talking about, shows joy a little bit more often, decided to love herself a little bit more deeply, decided to have communication with herself and source on a daily basis, decided to forgive her son, forgive her partner for, whatever, forgive herself, forgive the world for being cruel, forgive, the nights for being cold. Like we can't always be in control of everything, and forgiving ourselves for not being able to have that power. Like it's so hard to do, but if we just push and push and push and fight and say, no, this is the end goal. This is the end goal. I'm going to achieve this. I got this. There's no journey experience. It's just goal, 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 goal. And when I don't achieve it, now I'm a failure. So it's like goal, failure, goal, failure. Sometimes I achieve, but even when I achieve, it wasn't good enough.
I'm not going to celebrate it.
Nope. Yeah. That's how a lot of people live. And then they end up, if they're lucky, old, right?
Yeah.
Not always the case, by the way. Laying in their bed, thrashing around because their soul and their mind and their body is fighting against each other. It had nothing to do with her illness at that point. I mean, kind of did. I can't, because the human body is a part of it. But it had nothing to do with how do we make the ailment stop so it wasn't that. We could give her the meds and make her, quote unquote, body seem a certain way. But you know, if you're someone like me who's been in this practice for a long time, you know they are still distraught in their mind. That spiritual distress does not go away. You cannot medicate it. And because we cannot medicate it, what can we do? This was my whole project is on. You have to do preventative care, and that looks like meditating, communing with yourself, spirit, and like source. It looks like intentionally letting things go. Intentionally filling yourself with things that do bring you purpose and joy, because this is where my big thing ended up. Because when I was doing my research, because you have to have like research backing this, like this is a project that costs way too much schooling money wise to go partake in. And then it's also like, if you don't do a good job, you fail. And I'm not going to, after all the money asked me, I was like, I'll be damned, but I'm also not going to do
this school.
And I could have just picked like an easy thing to do.
Sure, you could have mailed it in, however.
Yeah, I was like, no. Because what it came down to, when I was doing my research, moving forward in just like my own life, what I really, really found is purpose, right? If you are not purpose driven and able to find yourself in the world, and that's not just like the self-love care of like finding yourself inside yourself. Okay, I found myself inside myself. I love myself and who I am. How do I now offer that? Apply it to the world so that I matter and I partake in it. And it doesn't actually have to do with anyone else. But what's beautiful about being purpose-driven, like 90% of the time, it always impacts the world positively. I would even say maybe 100% of the time, unless you're like a sociopath and like my purpose is like slay human beings. Unless you're crazy. Yeah, unless you're crazy, because that's what the thing is. People fail upwards because they're purpose-driven. Think about some of the people in this world who are in places that we can't even fathom. How do they get there? It's because they're purpose-driven. Yeah. They truly believe. So you can learn a thing or two from a president you might not like.
Good intentions and you're purpose-driven.
It changes the world for a positive.
And you've done the work.
Yes. Like, oh my God, that power right there. Boom. Yes. It's beautiful. And I just was like, okay, so, and I was very curious about this while in my work. So while I was doing my project, I would start asking, because when you're a hospice nurse, you're not just a nurse for the patient. You're a nurse for the unit. That's what's kind of different than some like floor nursing, is like you're there for the patient. The family can be like a bother. You're like, okay, please don't talk to me while I'm in here. Actually, you could leave, because like they can be a bother. But in hospice, it's completely different. Like you are there for the family just as much, and almost more in some ways. And so I would start kind of like asking questions when I would notice spiritual distress, like to the family, like, okay, like what was your dad's like career? Or, like what, and these are things you're already asking, but I started listening different, I guess, is sort of more the concept. And I'm just gonna give an example. It was like, okay, what was your dad's career? Well, dad always said he wanted to write a book, but he never, like, that's how the conversation is. Like the purpose. So when someone is in spiritual distress, you'll notice that like when someone who
He's like, I'm not ready. I didn't write the book.
Yeah. When someone is in like spiritual balance and ready to pass versus someone in spiritual distress, you will always notice that when they start that conversation of like, okay, what was your mom like, who's like peaceful, about to pass, right? Well, she was a beautiful mother. She, loved us, and she always showed us how to like play and have joy and find, it was like, but when someone's having spiritual, it always starts with there was this, that it was always like regret first, because on your deathbed, it seems to be the only place sometimes people notice that that's what's more important, right? The things that you think you need to be doing in life right now, because society says so, if it doesn't align with your purpose, it's actually pointless. I don't care how much money you've made. I don't care how many people you've pleased. Yes. I don't care. Because on your deathbed, you will not care. You will be sad you didn't write that book, that you didn't apologize to your son, that you didn't go hang out with your neighbor more, versus Sally over here who wrote the book. It flopped, but you know what? She did it. Yeah. She hung out with her kids. She baked cakes on Fridays. She was broke. She was born in the Great Depression, had no money. But you know what she did have? She had purpose. And because of that purpose, she was driven to find herself and apply herself to this world. And that right there is how you prevent spiritual distress. Because I'm not here to make patients healthier or better as a hospice nurse. Right. I am here to make the process that is inevitable of leaving this plane easier. And I hate that. The only way I can do that for some people is with morphine, because that's why I stepped away from nursing and got into the spiritual care aspect, because I see it as preventative care for your spirit when it is old and ready to move on.
Snaps for it.
That we can do that with as much ease as possible.
I'm going to explode. Okay.
But sorry, I was like, that's a very long-winded way of, because my final project was it was a purpose-driven thing for me. Yes. I needed, even if it was only to a room with 20 students, that I needed to get that message across to someone. Yes. And I'm now working in the process of turning into something more. And I'm hoping, my hopes for myself, because I've been diving deep into who I am and like what my purposes are. And I find that I'm attracted to so many things in life. So I kind of have to...
I get that.
Yeah, I like a lot of things. I want to do a lot of things, and I'm not succumb to like a path that, one person thinks like, oh, you got your nursing degree, do this, like, no, like I'm gonna do what I want.
I learned
do what I want because of what I've learned about all the things I've done. But I'm wanting to turn this idea and the things I know about just like Reiki and energy work and apply it to nursing in the sense of like coming in and helping other nurses combat burnout. Like, because I think that nurses, medical professionals, period, or even like emergency professionals, will be some of the people on that deathbed that have those regrets. And if I was going to help a group of people combat spiritual distress in the future and combat current burnout, if I couldn't pick a better group of people than nurses. Yes. But I learned the hard way that I don't want to be on the floor working as a nurse. I want to be involved in making sure that the people who are out there living in their purpose and passion are taken care of. Yes. Because one of the worst things and saddest things, I think, is when you are purpose-driven and you do have passion, but you lack that self-love and that self-care, because you almost have the full recipe, right? And so many people are like selfishly taking care of themselves and not applying purpose into this world, and they end up, it's like one side or the other. It's like I'm here or I'm there. I can't find this combination of both because I succumb to the matrix. If I don't do things this way, then I'm not right. But it's just not true. And I don't know if I'll be able to help the world or not. I do know that I have to try, so that way when I'm on my deathbed, hopefully old and beautifully grayed haired, that I can take that easy breath and pass on, versus that I know for a fact I will not be distraught. Maybe fearful, yes, because death is scary, and I will mourn for my losses in life and being a loss in life, but I will not fight it. And I know that for a fact. I've known that for a long time about myself. I've never shied away from death, and I'm not afraid of grief either. I know it's sad. I know it hurts. And I mean, I've seen people die in so many different fashions, like literally in front of my eyes. And it is a beautiful process, even when it's the most painful, scary thing. And it needs to be respected. And that's where like magic and science lives, right? Like we have no idea what happens after, but you will die. Science knows that. Mm-hmm. The magic in it is that how you're going to do it and what you leave behind when you do, right? Because that is what we do know. Everything else is just a fun experience we will find out sooner or later. But I just wanted to talk about that because when you asked the question at the beginning, I was like, man, like this is a concept of like connecting soul and science has been something I thrive off of, right? Because again, you're never going to convince me that they don't connect. And I love being able to share it with the world in a way that works for me. And maybe, this podcast might confuse some people. It might not make sense. It might be all over the place in someone's mind. But here's the thing, it's not even about what is being said, but the feeling that it evokes, right? There might be even just one person that listens to this and is like, you know what? I'm a little less afraid of being myself. And boom, right there. That's enough magic.
That's the win.
That's enough magic for it to just
this
be
whole show is for
worth it. Yeah.
Like one of the stories or a piece of the story will connect with someone in a way that enables him or her to change their life. Yeah. And to choose.
Yeah. Just through a feeling.
I choose joy. I choose myself. Mm-hmm. I choose fill in the blank. Mm-hmm. And I think this conversation is so pivotably words, word sounds, language. I think it is so important because it does make this accessible bridge from science to source, from source to science. And the conversation on death and hospice ties it together in such a beautiful way because it is a universal truth. Yeah. It is something that whether you believe in source or science while you're alive, we do all die. Mm-hmm. And it creates a reason for action right now. Yeah. Because Do you want to be the person that's struggling to pass on? Or do you want to be the person that I did what I was here to do?
Yeah. To leave this plane with pride in my human, knowing that my soul is still. There's nothing. My soul isn't going to go anywhere. This body will decay and it will be a part of earth once more. But my soul is going to do the next thing. So I have to take care of my soul. And my soul pleads with us to take care of our body while we're here. And that's why the human experience is important. We have to be there and show up for ourselves. But the soul is the powerhouse, right? It's what animates us. It's what makes us real.
What is it in
Mitochondria.
biology? Yeah,
the soul is the mitochondria of the body. No, but it is though, right?
It's the powerhouse of the cells. Like, why did that just ring like high school biology for me?
But it's real. It's so real. And gosh, and then we can get into like what the human body is capable of, especially when, like we already talked about, but powered by the soul. Like it's just a beautiful thing. And this is why like being alive is beautiful, even on the days where you're just like, ugh. You're here to be ugh. And that's amazing. Right? And like there's so much darkness in this world, but that duality, for everything you can think of that is just like harsh and scary, there's equal to and more light. And I think that's what, like when you asked earlier about myself from childhood to now, it was the same thing. I'm not any less raw and open to the world. I'm just intentionally filling myself with the light of the world versus the dark that. And on the days when I do need the dark, I don't disrespect it. There's beauty. You know, the moon shines in the dark, and we need that magic just as much. But there's some things that I will never understand. Cruelty, right? Like harming others for fun. Like there's things in this world that I cannot understand. But do I respect the darkness that Earth offers? Yes, because there's lesson in everything. And sometimes horrible things happen, but more time than not, when you're calling in the joy and happiness and you're loving on yourself, you will see more and more of the light every day. It's like inevitable. Like it's vibration, like Dad said, right? Yeah. Like Dad liked to gently remind us that it's real, and what you vibrate, you will attract. Like that's science right there. Like they have truly proven this time and time again. When we talk about books, you can read 100 different books on that concept, right? Yes. Written by scientists, like written by spiritualists, like what, and everybody in between.
But until you've embodied it,
it doesn't really do anything.
Matter.
Yeah. And embodiment is a whole nother thing, right? Like that somatic part of like the spirit, the body partaking in the experience is really important, right? And I think that it's just all about expression and how you create conversation with yourself and the powers that be. I'm a big, like I commune, right? I don't believe in like a certain religion or anything, and I don't necessarily like quote unquote pray, but every single day I'm talking to the powers that be, the thing that created us to have this experience, the thing that allowed us to be here. And I give gratitude because I'm just like, thank you. First of all, like that's crazy. Like you didn't have to do all that, but you did. And then also how like beautiful it is. The sky. Like I am the type of person that like if I see a cool cloud, I'm telling everyone.
Yes.
And that doesn't stop. Like I had a 25 years old bubble fairy party. Like bubbles bring me so much joy.
I love
like
bubbles.
Those kinds of things. It's like just as much as something that's dark and scary can bring you right down. It's like the simplest thing can just bring you right back up if you're looking and if you're vibrating in that frequency. And I'm not going to go as far as to say it's like, oh, we manifest everything, because there's people who, you know, bad things happen. And I would never sit there and tell you like, oh, you called that in or you manifested that. Like life is lifing, but there's so much joy to be had in knowing that the more I perceive this way, the more I love myself in this way, the more it happens, the more often it happens, the more I'm calling it in, the more other people treat me that way too. And that's real. Like that is so real and so powerful. And honestly, like, excuse my language, but like fuck the haters. Anybody who tells you
trolls.
Yeah. Anybody who tells you like, that's not how the world works, but like
let them.
Because at the end of the day, like you got you. And if you can be kind to yourself for even 5 seconds, you're winning in this world, because it's not taught to us. Yeah. So if anyone is listening to this, the only thing I would ask from you, if I could so humbly do so, is to, when the world wants to tell you no, is to tell yourself yes. And to always be kind to yourself, especially when it's hard. And it doesn't mean that you're not also having the critic there. Yeah. But you're just being kind to yourself as well. And then and then sooner or later, all of a sudden, those other parts get quiet and the kind part gets louder. But you just have to keep practicing. Yeah, I think that it's a beautiful thing to be able to love ourselves. And I'm just really glad that I am been placed here at this time with the people and mentors I have in my life to have the ability to share that with others. And I know to some it seems silly and weird that I spent all that money on a nursing degree and decided to become a meditation leader instead. But I let them because I don't think they see the work that's really there, that preventative care. I am helping patients. They may not be on, they may not be in the hospital right now.
I'm so excited to know what you're doing with it. I'm so excited to have gotten to talk to you about it more deeply because, yeah, we don't need to subscribe to the traditional path for certain educational backgrounds.
No, knowledge is power, and how you wield it is up to you. And absolutely, like, I'm a forever student, and I got my nursing degree truly out of like stubbornness because I didn't want to give up, even though I knew this about myself pretty early on in schooling, that I was like, I may never actually work in a hospital, I may never be a nurse, quote unquote, but I will find a way to use my RN because it'll give me the pathway and the mainstream things in the world for people to listen to me. Because sometimes, because we're human, right, we just kind of get caught up in
credentials and letters and notes.
crossing the T's, dotting the I's, making things look nice and whatever. And because I am a part of the matrix and I'm not ignorant enough to be like, oh, I'm yoo-hoo, woohoo, and like all spiritual all the time. I don't subscribe. The boxes don't exist. Like, yes, I am like that, but I'm also, not everyone is. And if you ignore the fact that people are having this human matrix experience, you're actually doing a disfavor to your enlightenment, because that's ground level, right? It's just, it exists. It's real. It might not be as real to me, you know, because I can morph and change, and I'm aware of that. And the matrix doesn't control me like it quote unquote controls some people, but I don't rudely disregard it because it is real to you. Makes it real to me.
And that matters.
And I was just say, if it matters to you, it matters to me. And I think that offering that to people and then them seeing that there's something beyond it versus being like, look at what's beyond it, what you're doing is wrong, is a way better guide to them finding it for themselves. Because that's what matters. I can't teach you something if you don't want to learn.
Yes.
And vice versa. So you just guys, like you said earlier, just being like open to the process and just open to the idea that like science and magic are intertwined. Like, I just keep seeing like the DNA, right? The strands just connecting and morphing and being infinite. Oh my God, it's infinite. DNA is infinite.
It just keeps going.
Like, it's so infinite. And that's, and what do they say? Like, Wiccan culture, man, as above, so below. It's like you learn something from everything, and everything is just like we're talking about like the work, like the author, it was in a concept that already existed, but it was reworked, right? Everything is the same. Prayer is meditation, meditation is prayer, God is source, source is God, like Christ energy, it all is just it's all real. It's just perception and what limits you're giving it. And if you take away the blinders and take away the limits and the perception, that's liberation. That's freedom of knowing. I don't know everything, but that directly creates the knowing of everything. Because now I have the freedom of feeling like anything is possible versus the limited belief, like, I don't know anything. Actually, what I do know is this because I've seen it with my own eyes, blah, blah. Like, limiting belief versus open to just the infinite possibilities of just what life has to offer.
Yeah. I have one final question. What fuels you?
Mostly chicken nuggets.
Yes. We all have more room for more chicken nuggets.
I was like vegan for a long time, so when I started eating meat again, I was like, chicken strips.
I love chicken strips.
No, honestly, I think I don't know if this is gonna sound, I wanted to say crazy, but honestly, I think I enjoy sounding absolutely insane to some people.
Do it.
Do it. I think the thing that fuels me the most is my highest self. On the days when I am unable to believe in myself, there's always that voice. I used to be so quiet, used to be shrouded in like the pain of the world, but it has been there from the moment I became aware, right? From that moment, from that story I was telling you about. And I used to think that it was like family and connection and you know, like even purpose, right? Like all these things. But all of that stems from the root, and the root is that seed that is planted, right? Like when we talk about like the birth process, like who knows when the spirit really like becomes a part of that like embryo. But all I know is that I have been here with myself from the moment that I could technically create memories. And that is the one consistent thing in a world that will inevitably always change and inevitably end. And because that's truth, I think that's where faith stems from. but we usually place it outside of ourselves. I'm not saying like I'm God or anything like that. It's just I know source lives inside of me, and I have faith in that voice, no matter what is happening, no matter how terrible things look or the outcomes seem like they're just going to be devastating. I somehow find myself completely grounded in believing in myself and knowing that I am going to be there for me. And I think that's why self-love coaching is where I ended up, is because that is what fuels me. And when you love something, you share it with the world. And it just happens that I love myself.
Love it.
And so I share myself with the world because
Yeah.
that's all I can do. There's no shutting it out now.
Yeah.
You know. So my fuel comes from, on my bad days, being kind for myself, on my good days being kind to myself, and all the days in between being kind to myself.
I love it. Thank you so much for taking the time to be here, and for having such a beautiful conversation around this, because I think that this whole show is this passion project of mine and this purpose-driven project of mine for hoping to share and connect stories, because we've been taught that we have to do it alone. We've been taught that we have to do it perfectly. We've been taught that we have to do it for others. And if we were all to just listen to each other's stories and realize, like, oh, wow, I'm not the only one. Or, oh, wow, there can be a bridge between source and science. I don't have to put myself in the box. I can have respectable boundaries. I can be whoever the fart I want to be. And what if the answer is just self-love?
Yeah. What if?
I appreciate you, and thank you so much.
I appreciate you. I have to. I cannot help it. I have to extend my gratitude as well, because, you know, gratitude is the best attitude. And I was like, again, like waist deep in school, and you had reached out to me so many times. And what's so beautiful about befriending people like you is I was able to let go without fear, and knowing that you would still be there when I was like ready, you know. So thank you.
I give you a hug. Thank you. What an incredible and transformative conversation with Kianna Moore. Her wisdom on bridging science and spirituality, cultivating balance, and living with intention reminds us of the profound beauty of embracing our wholeness. If this episode resonated with you, please take a moment to subscribe to Women When Fueled, leave us a review, and share it with someone who could use a little extra inspiration today. Your support fuels this space and helps us continue to share these impactful conversations with women just like you. To keep the conversation going, connect with me on Instagram at Women When Fueled, and visit It's Lex Butler for resources, updates, and ways to fuel your mind, body, and spirit. If you're ready to take your personal growth even deeper, be sure to check out my offerings like the upcoming Back to You Life Transformation course or the LB Method for Transformation. These tools are designed to help you honor your unique path and create a life that aligns with your highest vision. Thank you so much for sharing this space with us and for showing up for yourself. Remember, you are worthy of balance, joy, and the beautiful journey of self-discovery. Until next time, stay fueled, stay inspired, and keep embracing the magic within you. You're doing an amazing job, and I can't wait to connect with you again soon.